We can do it. Welcome, everybody.
Like the good old days.
Welcome to our October 8th meeting. We have a very exciting agenda this evening with some presenters in front of us. So with that, I'd like to get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So if it looks like we're kind of fumbling up here, we are. We're having some technology problems here this evening and being able to connect. Some of us are in, some of us aren't. We don't know what the problem is, but we can do this.
I just got
right?
redirected to
We can make it happen. So first on the agenda, which we don't need technology for, because she's here in person, County Legislator Brenda Kearney.
Good evening. You do have an exciting agenda,
Yes,
Christina, from Rebuilding Together. And I see a lot of Rhinebeck High School and I believe a 6th grade student. Hello. That's awesome. It's good to have you at the meeting. So first announcement, this Thursday is committee night for the legislature, 5:30 down at 22 East Market Street in Poughkeepsie. Please feel free to join us. Or perhaps more exciting will be legislative session this coming Tuesday, October 15th at 7 p.m. at 22 East Market Street in Poughkeepsie. I believe I spoke with you about this last time I was here. Proposed legislation I'm co-sponsoring to expand Dutchess County's response to the opioid crisis in the county, and also legislation to move the county forward in eliminating fossil fuel usage. Were both blocked this month, but my caucus will be reintroducing them again with necessary changes. I will be re-supporting them, and I really hope that they will come to the floor this fall. And lastly, on Wednesday, October 23rd at 4:30, the county is offering drop-in Narcan training. So if that's something you haven't done and you'd be interested in doing, that'll be at the County Stabilization Center in Poughkeepsie. So thanks. Any questions, concerns, thoughts from the board tonight? All right.
For the update.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Now, our first presentation for the evening, Christina, I'm sorry, on Rebuilding Together Dutchess.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Borick. I'm the Executive Director of Rebuilding Together Dutchess County. We are a local nonprofit here in Dutchess County with a vision of safe homes and communities for everyone. Our mission is up on the screen of repairing homes, revitalizing communities, and rebuilding lives. We are a national nonprofit serving communities like Dutchess County across the country. There are 130 Rebuilding Togethers across the country. We were founded in the 70s in Midland, Texas as Christmas in April. Some of you may recognize that name. We have the same mission as our founding organization, but we changed our name in the early 2000s to really better represent the work that we're doing throughout the year rather than just in April. So Pat, if you can move the slide for us. So we've been here in Dutchess County for 27 years. I'll continue. Founded, as I said, as Christmas in April. In that time, we've done over 750 Rebuilding Together projects here in our community, investing about $6.6 million back into our community and engaging about 14,000 volunteers. So we are very proud of those numbers and the impact that we've had on our community. We are a housing organization, as you can expect, that is providing critical home repairs, accessibility modifications, and energy efficiency upgrades for local Dutchess County homeowners. As I said, we've been here for 27 years. The reason why we do this work is that 2.6 million Americans are actually struggling with health and economic implications of living in unsafe housing. A lot of times this unsafe or unhealthy housing is caused by deferred maintenance. Individuals that are really struggling to make ends meet and cannot take on the repairs required to maintain their home. And so our mission is really to help them with the repairs that they need at no cost to them, to allow them to stay in their home and stay in the communities and the neighborhoods that they love. So we have a science-based approach to our repair programs based on 8 principles of safe and healthy housing. For each home that we look at, we have a 25 priority list that we evaluate the home and take a whole house approach and do an individualized repair scope of work for the homeowner's needs based on those 25 priorities. We have 3 programs for home repairs. Our flagship program is our Rebuilding Day program. It's what we were founded on. We do still pay homage to our founding is Christmas in April and do repairs in April. We typically do about 10 repairs in a single day on the last Saturday in April, engaging hundreds of volunteers. The market value of those projects is on average, has been between $20,000 and $25,000. Luckily, with some additional funding we've received from the state, we've actually been able to take an even deeper dive in those homes this year. Market value of about $30,000 per project. We also do then repairs in October with volunteers through our large-scale home repair program. They're really looking at making the home safe, so dealing with tripping hazards, fall prevention, electrical issues, making sure there's working smoke alarms in the home, looking at keeping it dry, so we do a lot of roofs here in Dutchess County. Our weather really, our roofs take a beating. Anything to keep moisture out of the home, so gutters, things like that, as well as plumbing issues. Just, a leaking plumbing can cause issues around water damage, mold, and then make the home very unhealthy for individuals. So that's our large-scale home repair programs. We do things like wheelchair ramps, accessibility modifications, window replacements, things like that to make the home safe and healthy. And then we have a handyman program. So if individuals don't have those major repairs that they need, but they want to, and oftentimes we do accessibility modifications around our handyman. Maybe you just need a couple grab bars or handrails in order to be able to live safely within and independently within your home. So our handyman program, we do that year-round, and that's done with volunteers typically as well. And then our home safety and fire prevention program is one we launched about 2.5 years ago, where we take 6 things that we do on our 25 priority checklist that's really around fire prevention and home safety. So we do smoke alarms, CO alarms, fire extinguishers, reflective house numbers for emergency response, an exterior motion activated light for safety coming in and out of the home, and then we replace all the light bulbs with LED light bulbs to help reduce energy consumption. We do about 125 of those projects a year. All of the applications for all of our programs are on our website, rtdutchess.org. Our Rebuilding Day program, we did just cut off our application for 2020 on September 30th, but residents can still apply. They would be put immediately on our waiting list until we have the resources to address those applications. But our handyman program and our home safety program, we take those year-round. Eligibility, there is an income eligibility. It's 80% of the area median income for a family of 2. This year was $60,400 to give you a sense of what those numbers are. All the numbers are on our application, which is on our website. As I mentioned, our handyman and our home safety applications we will take year-round. And again, those are on our website, rtdutchess.org. And then we have, lastly, a Community Strong program where we work with local nonprofits and communities, community spaces to provide repairs to buildings and community spaces. You know, our nonprofits in our community oftentimes are deferring maintenance on their homes, much like our homeowners, because they want to put all of their critical resources into their programming. And so we have the volunteer base, we have the project management know-how, and so we launched this program about 3 years ago to provide those types of repairs in our community as well. Again, that's our Community Strong program, so if you know of like VFW halls or other buildings within your community that are owned by nonprofits, we welcome you to spread the word for those individuals to apply for our programs as well. I'm going to pause to see if we have any questions. And I think I probably have
I have
gone over.
one.
Yep.
And just for people to access you, it's only through the website?
No, individuals, if they have questions about our programming, if they would qualify, you know, if they don't have access to the web, they can call our office at 845-454-7310. We'd be happy to go over eligibility with them over the phone. We have a series of about 6 questions we can ask individuals to see if they would likely qualify for our programs, and then we can mail the application to them. And again, it's homeowners in Dutchess County, income eligibility. For our Rebuilding Day program, we do have a couple other requirements. Those are our large-scale projects. We ask you to have homeowners insurance, that your mortgage and taxes are up to date.
How do you acquire volunteers? What's your outreach to volunteers to get the volunteers to do the work?
Sure. We are very fortunate that we have corporate and civic organizations that have supported our organization for, some of them, 27 years. Come back year after year. IBM and Central Hudson are 2 that have been with us since our founding. And so our Rebuilding Day programs, we tend to get repeat teams where they're coming out, Methodist churches and organizations like that, Rotaries, that are coming out with their team year after year. And then individuals can also then volunteer on our handyman and our home safety programs. We tend to announce those opportunities most often in our newsletter. Individuals can sign up for our newsletter on our website at rtduchess.org. It's an email notification newsletter, and then through social media and just through events like this, raising awareness about our programs and the opportunity not only for homeowners to receive cost-free repairs, but also for individuals to get engaged with their community. And oftentimes our volunteers tell us they feel like they get more out of it than even the homeowner, because they're able to come together as a team and in a single day make a transformative impact on somebody's life. Any other questions? Okay, great. Thank you for having me here. Appreciate it.
We're quickly going to go into public comment. If there's anybody that would like to make a public comment, has anybody signed in? If not, very good. We're going to move on to our next presentation. I've shuffled the order. The board has the agenda if you don't have it. We normally do department reports in a committee, but since we have some stellar guests here this evening, that I want to move them up further into front of the schedule. So it's with honor that I had the privilege of meeting Isabel Breslin, AKA Scout. Is that okay? And through our environmental committee, we met with the school and talked to them, and then recently Isabel and Caitlin organized a climate walkout and supported that, which was well organized and well run. Isabel, just for everybody's record, out of 7,000 applications, 500 students were selected to go to the UN Youth Climate Summit. She's one.
Wow.
And we're proud to have her here in the village of Rhinebeck, because now we've asked Isabel to come up and share her experiences with us.
Hi, I'm Isabel Pronto Breslin. Some of you may know me as Scout.
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. I'd like to thank the mayor and also other folks from town government, Matt Stinchcomb and Dan Shapley, who have been so supportive of the efforts of youth and have shared with us resources and opportunities. Over the past year and a half, I've translated my love for nature into taking action on climate issues that are key to the survival of our planet. I do my part for the environment by volunteering at an Audubon wildlife rehab clinic, and I've also worked with my community to hold environment-related events to educate people about the threats our local wildlife face. I've recently been involved in planning for several regional youth climate summits, and I've seen plenty of kids who know and care about the climate crisis. This work led me to be selected to attend the UN Youth Climate Summit, which I was asked to speak about here today. I'd also like to give a small picture of what is happening in our area around climate and how our local youth are determined activists, problem solvers, and leaders. The UN Youth Summit was attended mostly by youth from countries around the world, but also by global and corporate leaders who were there to hear and learn from the youth. The most notable mention would be when the UN Secretary General sat down with 4 youth climate leaders, including Greta Thunberg, and listened as they relayed how urgent the crisis is and how the world's youth are a very important voice. At the summit, youth also showcased their incredible work in policy, advocacy, technology, and nature-based solutions. I also took advantage of it being Global Climate Week, and I skipped a couple days of school to attend a hub on nature and climate and events with youth leaders. Aside from all these events being very exciting and empowering, I also took some very practical points from them. The first point is the need to incorporate youth into political decision-making and governance, so we have a say in the decisions that affect our future. This also goes along with holding leaders accountable to their promises and not letting corporations influence policy and decision-making. The young people at the summit spoke truth to power. The second point is that supporting and learning from indigenous communities is very important when considering how to approach combating the climate crisis. Not only do indigenous lands hold 80% of the world's biodiversity, indigenous communities have been practicing nature-based solutions that protect their local ecosystems for tens of thousands of years. The third lesson I took is around personal action. On the one hand, there are still too many people that see the impact of climate change as something distant and therefore they're not engaged. But that's not true. The climate crisis will and is already affecting everyone. At the UN Youth Summit, one thing I found really effective were the points made by Olympic athletes who talked about how the climate is impacting their various sports, which is motivating them to take action. It is important to show how climate directly impacts the things that people care about and make it personal. And for those who do get it, they're often overwhelmed and anxious. And this is where we need to also focus on solutions. And the good news is that there are many out there, from larger scale creation of circular economies to local regenerative agricultural practices, to changing personal habits. My fourth and final point is the urgency with which we need to address the situation. Climate change isn't just some obscure thing that will only take effect in the distant future. It is happening right here and now, and we have only a handful of years before its effects are irreversible. The threat our Earth faces is now rightly being called the climate crisis, which conveys that sense of urgency. At the same time, we are facing an ecological crisis that is often overlooked but must be dealt with hand in hand with the climate issues. They are interlinked. There is intrinsic value in nature, but we also depend on the critical ecosystem services that nature provides. For example, food and water, clothing, jobs, medicine, recreation, and climate regulation. With all of this in mind, what I plan to further pursue is education and action based around biodiversity and nature-based solutions for climate, as well as creating opportunities for youth to become climate leaders. I and my fellow Rhinebeck youth climate activists, like these lovely ladies over here, would love to work with the town and the Conservation Advisory Board, the Environmental Committee, and others in the community that are interested in these issues. We have a lot to build on already. There are youth networks being created, like the New York Student Climate Coalition. Events this year and early next year include the Drawdown Learn event at the Omega Institute, which was linked to the Drawdown Eco Challenge, in which our school came in second place globally. The Yes Summit at the Ashokan Center and other youth climate summits in New York State. Young people, including students from Rhinebeck, have been active in these. Other actions by young people in our community are being taken in the forms of reducing single-use plastics, recycling in the schools, doing environment and sustainability-related volunteer work, encouraging businesses to go green, creating gardens, and educating the community. We have a long list of things we would still like to do. Youth in our community, from little kids to young adults, expect change and want to contribute to the fight. This is our future, after all. What we youth climate activists would like to see is a community where our efforts are supported and our voice uplifted. We want a place at the table, a say in the decision-making, and we want the promises of action to be fulfilled. And we want this with greater urgency. There is no time to spare. What I propose to you today is to set up a formal mechanism for youth to be involved in local government, like a youth council. We will have to find out the details of the models out there, but we know this has been done. We are fortunate to live in a town that is committed to climate action, and we look forward to being a larger part in this. Thank you.
Did anybody say that she's only a sophomore? Pretty incredible. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Caitlin wants to say something as well, right?
I would like to just tell you something about the eco challenges that Scout mentioned earlier. Our town has participated in 2 eco challenges this past year. An eco challenge is a month-long challenge that teams can compete against each other, focused on doing actions that help the environment. Participants use a website to log their completed actions and set goals for themselves. For every action completed, they earn points for themselves and their teams. The challenges and actions are focused on building habits that people can continue once the challenge is over. In April of last year, Rhinebeck participated in the Drawdown Eco Challenge, which focused on actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and combat climate change. Out of the 1,043 teams from around the world and the country, Rhinebeck came in second place. We had 389 team members who together amassed 92,934 points. During that challenge, the Rhinebeck community traveled 471 miles by carpool, 125 by bike, 1,002 by bus. We spent 13,016 minutes learning about climate change solutions. We saved 4,542 gallons of water. We planted 117 trees. We replaced 50 light bulbs. We ate 1,659 meatless or vegan meals. We saved 6,933 pounds of carbon from escaping into the atmosphere. In July, 74 community members in Rhinebeck also participated in a plastic-free eco challenge, and we earned 9,150 points. We spent 225 minutes learning. We picked up 114 pieces of litter. We prevented 31 disposable cups, 261 plastic containers, 204 plastic straws, 127 pieces of plastic cutlery, and 314 plastic bottles from going into the landfill. These figures are not even our total impact. Through these challenges, the members of the Rhinebeck community have shown they care about the environment. They have shown that together, we can make a difference in our small town.
I only have one comment. Don't underestimate our youth. How is that? So along with everything that we're talking about the environment tonight, and thank you so much for presenting what you've done, we'd like to now shift gears a little bit and go to the opposite spectrum and talk about the Citizens Climate Lobby and the Carbon Dividend Act with Lori Houston.
Lori, I'm not sure, I don't think this is.
You advancing? Uh-oh, my crutch.
Do you want to go, Lori?
You want to look at the laptop? I mean.
No, it's fine. It's fine. They'll just have to look at me. So bored. Just very wise and constructive words. Thank you for those. So my name's Lori Husted. I am here today as a volunteer with the Citizens Climate Lobby. Here, like this. All right. Citizens Climate Lobby. I am actually from Red Hook, but I live very close to the border. The aerodrome is my neighbor. Does that count? So I work at Bard College as the Chief Sustainability Officer, and I just want to commend the village leaders. You have been leaders in all this work at the local level to prepare us for a changing climate. As someone who has bicycled to your farmers market, I appreciate your efforts to be a walkable, bikeable, sustainable place to live. I saw you have a climate smart community coordinator. I know that Mayor Bassett, you volunteer at the county level for the Climate Smart Task Force. My stepbrother sits by your side, by the way. Yeah. And the greenhouse gas inventory that's coming, it's going to, figuring out your baseline, that's amazing. So, and even just a few days ago, seeing the first of its kind Clean Power Expo. It's just Rhinebeck is on the map, for doing really productive things. But we can't reverse global warming at the local level, which is why I think you invited me here today. We do need action at the federal level. So grateful to you and everyone for coming to spend this time to learn about what we can do at the federal level. Briefly, my adult life has been dedicated to sustainability, but I woke up to the urgency of this issue in 2016 when I watched my son collapse from heat exhaustion during just a track meet. He fully recovered within a few hours, but it struck me that while we could put him in the air conditioning, there are millions around the world who could not do that. The human body actually can't cool itself at this certain combination of heat and humidity. It turns deadly, and that deadly heat is already here, and it's becoming more widespread. As you've heard, we have little time. We have less than 11 years to change our ways. Business as usual will lead us to a planet we don't recognize. So that urgency led me to start this local chapter of the Citizens Climate Lobby. It's a nationwide organization. I started that in 2017 to really urgently try to help others understand that there is a federal solution, and it will drastically cut our carbon pollution. So that's a huge step forward for our survivability, and so thank you for this time again. So, slide change. There is a climate bill in the House. It has a real chance of succeeding. And in a little bit, I'll tell you the particular approach that the organization I'm volunteering for is promoting. And you'll see for yourself whether it's something you can support with a resolution. So first, we try to think of what makes a good policy solution in sort of 5 ways. It should be able to drive large-scale change quickly versus making marginal improvements. It has to be just match the scale of the problem. We need to transform a carbon polluting trend line from adding carbon to reducing carbon in the atmosphere. It should use incentives that support choice instead of a control approach. The idea being that we let people choose for themselves with incentives that help them choose wisely. It has to be fair, it has to be sticky. The policy has to be fair and not regressive. It shouldn't pose a burden on those who are poor or disadvantaged. And it has to be sticky, so durable. It needs popular support so that a change in political leadership can't easily overturn it. And 5th, it has to be healthy for the planet and the economy. It should not only reduce carbon emissions for a healthy climate, but also help create jobs and a robust economy for all. So what kind of policy approach meets those 5 criteria? Generally, it's called a carbon fee and dividend, and this is how it works. There is a carbon fee. The policy puts a fee on the emissions of fossil fuel like coal, oil, and gas, and it starts low and grows over time. The fee will drive down carbon pollution because consumers over time will make choices to move towards lower carbon ways to live. Suddenly, carpooling, electric cars, heat pumps, and solar panels are more than a good idea. They save Rhinebeck residents money. And moreover, energy companies and leading industries will be increasingly motivated to invest in technologies that provide energy with fewer greenhouse gas emissions. So then there's a carbon dividend side. Put the fee on and then the dividend. Give the fee back to households. Basically send people a check. Why? Because it makes the policy, that thing I described earlier, durable and popular. You get a small check every month to spend however you want. The genius of this approach is that the less carbon you use, the more of that check you can spend on your other needs. At that expo on Sunday, I met many Rhinebeckers who are low carbon, or we start to call them carbon virtuous. And so they'll come out ahead. And studies show that low and middle income households will come out ahead as well with this policy. So it's simple and elegant, but it won't happen unless we build the political will for it in Congress to make it a law. So for 10 years, we've been doing that. CCL has been building relationships with Congress and thought leaders to wake up our leaders to pass an effective law like the one I just described, and we have one in the House right now. It's called the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, and it meets our criteria for large-scale change through incentives that are fair, and it produces a healthier planet. So on your handout, you have sort of the 5 key points. It's effective, it's good for people, it's good for the economy, it's bipartisan, and it's revenue neutral. So just super briefly, the wonderful news is it's been modeled and it will reduce carbon pollution 40% in 12 years. It's the most effective piece of legislation that's out there, even more effective than the Paris Agreement that we're backing out of. It's supported by economists and scientists as simple, comprehensive, and effective. It's good for people in a couple of ways. It puts that money back in their pockets. They spend it as they see fit. It helps low and middle income Americans. The slide you would see is the number I haven't memorized, but in 12 years, about a family of 4 will be taking in about $3,500 a year with this policy. So that's quite meaningful for certain incomes. The other way it's good for people, and I also don't have these numbers memorized, but it literally saves lives. I think by year 12, it's 2.1 million people, sorry, order of magnitude off, like 250,000 people who will be alive because of this policy. Also, people will be healthier because the air is healthier. So fewer trips to the hospital. The number that I do remember is that it's good for the economy. It creates 2.1 million jobs over 10 years. That bipartisan thing, Republicans, Democrats are both on board, co-sponsoring this bill together. The majority of Americans support Congress taking action on climate change, and it's too urgent to get caught up in partisan politics. That last piece is that revenue neutrality. Part of it is it doesn't grow government. It passes through the Treasury back to people. So there are a bunch of people that support it, and different members of the audience will recognize their venerable thought leaders from the 80s in the Reagan area to some snowboarder that I don't remember his name, but he's very popular with youth. People, once they hear about it, they understand it and support it. We're up to 64 co-sponsors. Let's see. Our job is to keep building that political will. We generate thousands of media articles, letters to the editor, personal communications from individuals. Many of you in this room, I know, have written a postcard or a letter for Congressman Delgado. And over 100 cities around the country have endorsed this policy. Locally, you'll be joining the town of Rhinebeck and Red Hook, the village of Tivoli, the town and village of New Paltz, and the town of Marbletown, if you endorse tonight. We actually started to put out the call to local businesses, and of 14 businesses contacted in Rhinebeck, 14 said yes. And if you flip your packets, they're listed there. Basically, you talk to people and they want it to happen. Just needs more conversation. So all the details are really clearly laid out in energyinnovationact.org. It's this straightforward piece of carbon pricing legislation that puts a slowly rising fee on carbon pollution where it enters the economy and returns a dividend equally to households. It's the first best step in creating a livable world. And it still needs all that other work that you guys are doing, but it's a good first step. So you are help creating that political will for a livable planet tonight with your vote, so thank you. That's all I got.
So I would like to just let everybody and let the board know, and Trustee Korchak's on the environmental committee as well. We've debated this since May, correct? May of this year, back and forth with meetings and discussions and dialogue to make sure that we truly understood the ramifications of a corporate policy as this is. And coming out of that, we decided that rather than taking the standard path of using the boilerplate resolution that was provided by the CCL, we crafted our own resolution, which is really meant to be more specific to what it means to the village of Rhinebeck. And rather than reading the whole resolution, I want to read one paragraph on that because I think it's important. Whereas the village of Rhinebeck recognizes the need for consideration of all possible policies, available sciences, and economic means in order to effectively address the issue of the human-produced climate change. And whereas the village of Rhinebeck recognizes the urgency to address human-produced climate change timely and decisively. So this is important to us as a village to be able to think that we're not only thinking of this carbon tax initiative, but we're really thinking globally about things we can do, working with the youth, working with the drawdown, working with Eco Challenge, and supporting other resolutions. But at the end, be it resolved that the Village of Rhinebeck urges the United States Congress to enact without delay the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, H.R. 763, going forward. So kind of a brief summary of everything that's happened since May and a lot of dialogue. Is there any other comments from the board?
I think it's important to, as you did, emphasize the broader scope of what we're doing. In fact, I'd like to pay homage to both Isabel and Caitlin because you both brought out the broad nature of the effort to include how we eat, to include how we drive, to include how we live our lives. And to that end, I think it's important that you do read the first part of the resolution, which I think basically reinforces what our youth is telling us, what they've learned. I don't think there is a single magic bullet, quite frankly. I support the legislation, even though I do have some questions about how it would be implemented. It's very difficult. It's going to go through the sausage grinder in Congress. And my other great concern, which I think Isabel brought out, is how do we limit corporate influence on all of this? That's where, quite frankly, a lot of our problems come. Undue influence and looking for profits rather than the common good. And so I worry about that. And yet I do support moving forward. But I do want to place emphasis on the fact that we are first, in our first part of our resolution, emphasizing that it's a broad effort, that we want Congress to consider all means, not just this piece of legislation.
So I took a look at the bill actually on the House website just to read about it and see what it does and what its focus is. And I think the point is that this attempts to create a market mechanism so that the actual true cost of carbon emissions are being borne. And that's really what we need to do. When they receive price signals, that's how they change their mind and change their behavior. And I always think of this in a micro way. A couple of years back, we had to redo the pump station for our water intake pumps, correct? Because we were experiencing higher tides. It's now in a superstorm flood zone. So we had to go in, we had to raise up our equipment. I think it was about $25,000.
$45,000.
So even though that's not much, that's part of the cost of climate change. That was $45,000 in the village of Rhinebeck. We just have a little building down there, but that's what brings in the water into the village. So the idea that somehow you can just let carbon into the air and it has no cost is not correct. And the only way you're going to get people to change their behavior is to understand those costs. And I think this is one of the ways that you can understand the costs. So I think it's a good idea.
Well, the way I look at it also is that it's kind of a free market thing, because when we put contaminants in the air, we don't own the air. You know, it's the true cost to the society can actually be, you know, paid for by a carbon tax. I mean, cap and trade is so complicated. I mean, I really think that's very difficult to pull off, but carbon tax seems to be broadly popular and a simple tool for actually trying to accrue for the actual costs of burning fossil fuels and putting things into the environment. So it's a good start.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have worked with our environmental committee, who worked hard on this and debated it, as I said, because there's a bunch of smart people on that committee that really take this into consideration and look at the aspects of it and how we derive this. And the environmental committee, which is a joint committee between town and village, recommended that this policy come forward to the board, right, with the changes that we have talked about. So, with that, unless you want me to, is there anything else you would like to discuss on this?
Paul, did you want to read the first couple of paragraphs? Or?
I can, right. So this is a resolution urging the United States Congress to enact laws enabling the application of policy, scientific, and economic means necessary to reduce human-produced climate change. Whereas the Village of Rhinebeck supports the fundamental right of all residents to a stable and healthy ecosystem of clean air, water, and soil, which includes the right to be free from all activities that reverse elements in the environment that degrade, contaminate, or otherwise compromise the Earth's ecosystem. And whereas the United States government released its 4th annual climate assessment in November 2018, not only concurring with these conclusions of the global scientific community about climate change, but also reporting that the impacts of climate change are already being felt in communities across the United States, and that more frequent the intense extreme weather and climate-related events, as well as changes in the average climate conditions, are expected to continue to damage infrastructure, ecosystems, social systems that provide essential benefits to communities. And whereas there is furthermore the consensus among the global scientific community that human-produced greenhouse gases have caused much of the observed increase in the Earth's temperature in the past several decades. I think that kind of summarizes where we're going, that we need to act. And this is one step which we can, as a Village of Rhinebeck, take forward to act to help further promote, you know, the degradation of our climate. And with that, I'd like to call for a vote.
Well, I think, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, finish with the resolution portions of that.
The resolution?
Yes.
Sure. I read the one. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Rhinebeck, New York urges the United States Congress to begin immediate action to investigate, identify, and enact legislation that would implement comprehensive policy, science, infrastructure, and economic actions to set a course to mitigate in a timeline deemed necessary by the United States 4th Annual Climate Assessment and supported by the consensus of the global scientific community to mitigate the effects of human-produced climate change and to incorporate, as deemed appropriate, complementary elements of the Energy Innovation and Carbon Act of 2019, H.R. 763, into revised legislation that defines a comprehensive long-range plan. And be it resolved that the Village of Rhinebeck, New York, urges the United States Congress to enact without delay the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act of 2019, H.R. 763. And it goes on furthermore to ask us to, within 30 days, pass this resolution, transmit copies of the resolution to the President, Vice President of the United States, Speaker of House, and to Majority Leader of the Senate, and U.S. Senator and Representative of New York State and Congress of the United States. Okay. I'd like to ask for a vote to adopt this very important legislation on climate change.
Second
You
that.
need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion for a vote.
Second that.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? So carried. Thank you all again for our climate summit. So with that, we're going to go on into our regular portion of the meeting. The next is our treasury report by our treasurer, Karen McCollum.
Okay, the treasurer's report is for the period ending September 30th. The tax collector's account ended the month with $1,159,739.72. The general fund ended the month with $49,120.02. The water fund ended the month with $303,159.71. And the sewer fund ended the month with $521,631.84. Our New York class investments yielded 2.2% over the last 30 days. Even though the interest rate is going down, we're still making a pretty good interest rate on our investment there. Vouchers presented for payment in the general fund total $114,206.21. In the water fund, $29,705.02. In the sewer fund, $26,480.35. We have an escrow bill in the amount of $3,956.25. We have bills for the water main project that total $25,663.84. And in the water, for the lagoon cleanout of $54,070. We have one bill for the new historic district grant in the amount of $2,500. And a ADA lift bill for $1,796.88. An operating statement is provided with the revenue and expenditures through this evening, October 8th. The water and wastewater billing and adjustments have been reviewed and signed off by the Water and Wastewater Department liaisons and are presented for authorization.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the water adjustments as presented by the treasurer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
And, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the wastewater adjustments as presented this evening.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It's carried. Thank you.
Okay. And lastly, I have a few budget amendments to do. For the 164002, the highway garage, I'm requesting an increase of $4,000 and funding that from contingency for over budget for electrical work at the highway garage. Next is the historic district grant, which I set up a new account, 750104.01.0.109. And to allocate the historic grant from grant revenue of $7,875, which amazingly we have already received, as well as the village's portion of $9,675, which will be allocated from unreserved fund balance. And for tree trimming, I'm requesting an increase to that line item of $3,000. That line item came in over budget by some emergency tree removals and some other tree removals that we had to do. And I'm requesting that come from contingency. I have a small one in the water fund for the 8330 equipment to increase that by $400 and decrease the water source pump contractual expense by $400.
So I'd like to make a motion to first accept the transfer of funds from contingency to cover the expenses identified by our treasurer.
Second.
Discussion?
So in terms of the panel box down at the highway department, the old box was arcing and the breakers were overheating.
Oh.
So a new box was put in, and it also turned out that we were running running a couple of garage doors off extension cords. So they got hardwired too. So that was to basically replace the old box, which was no longer functioning properly. So that was not anticipated.
Which was unforeseen,
Yes,
correct?
which was not anticipated. And similar with the trees, we had to do some tree work, including out here in our own parking lot, which was just unforeseen, and some emergency work for some emergency situations.
Okay. Do I have a second to approve the contingency?
Second.
Did a second.
Do we need a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Carried. I'd like to make a motion to approve the general fund amendments to our account as mentioned by our treasurer.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, and that's all I have.
All right, we're going to go into the monthly police report right now. I'm going to apologize because I have to share computers during this. Total number of incidents in the town was 27. Total number of incidents in the village, 119. Total number of tickets in the town, 22. Total number of tickets in the village, 60. Total number of arrests were 7. And total number of accidents were 5 for the month of September. And our police provided extra coverage for our events for the Food and Wine Festival and Porch Fest. And also, we did monitoring with the speed trailer on Platt Avenue and also on Springbrook Avenue during the last month. And then the court, I need the court one.
Sure, I have to do the resolution under the,
We'll go in the court, no, we'll go there.
you want that?
Yeah, that one. No, that's the resolution, the court report. Sorry, I'm having technical issues.
That's all I have.
It was 216 tickets and revenues of $5,315.
Thank you.
Just a couple sentences long.
Okay, and then next, what we have, and I believe is here in the audience with us tonight, we have Jonathan Wilson, who will be replacing Mark Morrow, who has resigned from the Village Police Department. Mark, if you remember, joined us, I believe, Pete, 6 months ago? About 6 months. And we know it, we anticipate this. Mark, he was great, and we valued his service while he was here, but quite often, officers get the opportunity to get a better job. And there is no reason we would want to ever hold anybody back from getting a better job, particularly full-time with benefits and pay. So with that, I would ask the board to accept Mark's resignation. So I make a motion to accept the resignation of Mark Morrow from our police department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? And with that, now we have a recommendation from our Sergeant Police Pete Dunn for a new officer, Jonathan Wilson. And I'm just going to give a very brief introduction of Jonathan. Number one, I've never met a person with so many certifications in my entire career. The obvious question to ask Jonathan is, what do you not have, all right, versus what do you have? Jonathan will be of great value to the village of Rhinebeck with his certifications. He brings a lot of experience, not only as a police officer, but at SRO and Red Hook, but fire and safety training, police dog training, and those certifications that all go with it. And he's available to come and work with us as the village of Rhinebeck. So I'm offering to the board Jonathan Wilson for a new police officer to our village police department. And before we vote, I would like to ask Jonathan just to come up and say a few words and introduce himself, because I think it's important that we all meet our officers, because they will be out and about.
Well, there are a few things I'm not certified in. Just saying. I'm Jonathan Wilson. I've been a police officer about 20 years now. I've been a fireman since I was 16. Career when I started at about 30. So I'm also a career lieutenant in Fairview Fire District. Hopefully I can give the village of Rhinebeck my best. We'll go from there. Being the SRO, I do know a lot of people, so I do introduce myself very regularly. I have no problem getting out of the car and walking and shaking hands. So hopefully we'll be doing it on the streets a little more. Anything else? Question for me?
What's an SRO?
School Resource Officer.
Thank you.
Yep.
We currently have 2 school resource officers, but it's nice to have a backup if we ever need it, which is nice. I had the opportunity to talk with Jonathan and Sergeant Dunn And I find Jonathan very exemplary. Please.
He doesn't really know me, sorry.
Yeah, no. But sometimes you can make that judgment very quickly when you meet somebody.
I appreciate that, thank you.
So I'd like to make a motion to recommend Jonathan Wilson to our police department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I need a salary if you're
Oh,
hiring.
you're right. So per contract, we are obligated to start at a starting wage of $20 per hour, which has been accepted by Jonathan Wilson. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome to Village of Rhinebeck.
Okay, just do it tonight or want to do it later?
No, tomorrow.
Okay.
Next day, couple of days.
Okay, very
I'm
good.
just downstairs.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Next, under police and court, we have a IMA for the, if you remember last month, we talked about a IT services for our police department. And we approved that. Our court services has the same requirement, given that they're separate from our village, and our IT services for the same organization using BOCES, which is the same identical contract that we have with the police department. So with that, BOCES has now rewritten the IMA to be inclusive of both rather than having two separate, and that we can approve both at this time. So I do not have a copy of that, if anybody would like, but is there any questions about the IMA? All right, having no questions, I make a motion that we approve for both the police and the court, the IMA from BOCES for our IT support services for that equipment.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Thank you. And next is the Court Consolidation Award. Rick, do you have that? I'm going to let you go with it there.
Okay. In conjunction with the town, we had received a grant from the county to do a study to look at the consolidation of basically the back offices of the town and the village to see if there could be efficiencies that were derived. So an RFP, or request for proposal, went out, and it was received. The mayor, myself, Chauncey Walker from the town participated in the grading process of the various proposals that we looked at, and we chose one. So this resolution is to accept the bid. Let's see how that's worded here. That whereas the joint Rhinebeck Village Town Court Consolidation Plan Committee has reviewed the bids and determined that the LaBarge Group is the lowest responsible bidder, therefore it be resolved that the bid of the LaBarge Group is accepted. So with that, basically this will put, this will allow the LaBarge Group to get started. We read through everybody else's, we read through theirs and other people's work that they've done in similar situations, and really thought theirs was most comprehensive and effective. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the bid from the LaBarge Group.
What's the amount?
It's 39,000.
39,000.
39,000.
The second lowest.
So along with that, we will need to ask for an additional 9,000 because we have a grant for 30,000 to cover this work for us. So it comes with a $9,000 increase for us to be able to do the work. But it's still, like as Trustee Lewitt said, the best group that we could find.
It was, we did a pretty thorough review and really found that the LaBarge Group was head and shoulders. We looked very seriously at the additional cost, but it seemed like the other ones cost less, but didn't give you much information. And it was the Labarge Group that really came through with the goods.
Deputy Mayor, if I recall correctly, the bids were being submitted both hard copy and soft copy. Is it possible for the other trustees, if they're interested, I am, to take a look at the proposals submitted?
Yeah, we had made all the copies available and then announced it here to the board, and the copies were available in the clerk's office
Yes, they're down in my office.
for,
okay.
for over
Okay.
for a month now to review.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I have them right here with me. so.
Were those the ones that were left? The
They're
stack?
small.
Oh, okay.
They're just small packets.
So no,
Did we get soft copy? Or you could-
I think we was all hard copy.
Oh,
These are all
Yeah,
hard
they're
copy.
all
We were
hard
not the
copy.
lead bid,
Nothing
these were
was-
all hard copy.
Yeah. Okay.
And we received
Nothing
from the
was
town,
digital.
and so we announced these at the last meeting that they were available
Okay.
for you all to read.
oh, good.
So I would like to amend your resolution that we adopt LaBerge, but we adopt the LaBerge Group with the provision that we need $9,000 extra.
Will you be allocating that from unreserved fund balance?
Yes, I'm sorry, that's a good point.
Is the 9,000 just for the village, or this is a shared services at 4,500?
Our share is $39,000, which we have the grant for,
Oh.
which is the $9,000.
Okay.
So it'd be amended again, thank you, from unreserved fund balance
Okay, so,
for the $9,000.
want a motion?
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain?
So the whole cost of the project is 72,000 then, or 78?
Yeah, our share is $39,000.
Right, so is the
Town is paying another $39,000.
Right, so the whole project costs 78,000.
Correct.
78.
And I just have a quick question. Is the town the lead agency on
Yes.
that?
The
Yes.
town is the lead.
Yeah.
So our cost will just be a payment to them, and then they would be, like, are we engaging with our
Good question. I don't know how to
portion of
answer
it?
that question, who pays the bill at the end of the day.
Well, I need to know that.
I do know that in the bid package, you'll see that it was broken out separately,
Okay.
so that we can see that, so.
All right.
Will we both be signing a contract on? Both village and?
Both village and town have
Yeah,
to sign a
okay.
contract.
So that's, there's your answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
I'll find out.
was the total grant 30,000 or 30,000 for both town and,
Yeah, no, I think
What was that?
you doubled it, Mr. Mayor. It's $39,000 for the Rhinebeck's portion.
Village and town.
Village and town
Okay, thank
together. So that is ours, so we actually,
Oh, it's $4,500
so we need to do $4,500.
okay.
Because the town, right,
That's
so
right.
we need to amend, yeah. The,
So,
That rewrite,
okay, so. can we-
High math.
High math, right. So I'd like to make, I'll go back to the page here. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the bid from the Labarge Group for a total of $39,000 for the village and the town to contribute, with the addition that we will withdraw $4,500 from the
Reserve fund
unreserved fund balance
Okay,
to pay for
45.
our portion of the study.
balance. Okay.
thank you.
Is
That's
that a
good.
motion?
Yeah, is that a motion? That was a
We have a
motion, yeah.
second?
second, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you.
I just say that when we got these, also the bidders were a little confusing. Some people gave us a total package some people gave us partial packages. It was a little weird, so I had to figure that one out, but got straightened out.
Thanks, Rick.
So building, planning, and zoning, I'm not sure, Paul, if you have this or not, but if you don't mind if I can do that?
No, go ahead, please.
Under building, planning, and zoning, under the zoning department, we had a member who was appointed over a year ago, Josh Pulver, who has now been elected to the town board as a council person. Josh cannot serve on 2 boards within 2, so Josh is resigning from the town board, and that's effective immediately with his placement on the town board.
You sure?
So I'd like to make a motion to, pardon?
You sure? He wants to do that?
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion to accept the resignation of Josh Pulver from our zoning board of appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. I'll just add on to that, we're working, both trustee Korshak and I are working with Colton Johnson and the member of the zone, as chair of the zoning board, and we're looking for not only new members, but additional alternates. So if there's interest out there, please come forward. Okay, Highway Department.
Okay, we have several things. The first thing, I don't have a report, but the crews are out doing the brush and leaf removal. And again, I'll just ask folks that you do need to keep, if you're going to put out brush, try to keep it to about 4 feet. If you can cut it up, because it has to be scooped up by the bucket. Larger things they can't pick up. So just to make most efficiency, you can keep your limbs to about 4 feet or so. That would be 4 to 5 feet. That would be a really big help. Do you guys want to do? Well, first we can do the Streetscape Committee. So this is something that I've been thinking about and I've been studying about for a little while. And this is a resolution to start a Streetscape Committee. And the reason why I got into it, I've been reading about growth, and we have a sidewalk committee and a grant that we need to act on as well. But in one of my books, it really came across, I came across this passage and I thought, we need to do this. Streets are not just for moving cars. Their design must support their role as public spaces. In addition to vehicular lanes, they must include sidewalks, trees, curbs, lighting, and other elements that collectively constitute the streetscape. These deserve serious attention as they all contribute to the success of a place. Rather than establish a single standard, municipalities should require a full range of regionally appropriate streetscapes that correspond to the transect or the area. So in looking at that and knowing what I know, both being on the tree committee and being on the highway committee, it seemed to me that Rhinebeck needs to take a more comprehensive look at basically our streets and our sidewalks and our trees in the area called the Brow, which is just beyond the right-of-way, how all those things come together and interact. It's my goal, mayor's goal, it's the board's goal, to make the village walkable, bikeable, sustainable. These things are really important, and this would be an important step in trying to do this. The goal of the committee would be to come up with guidelines that the village could implement. If we're going to be changing, or I won't say changing, but improving the streetscape in the village, it's going to take a long time. So these would be design recommendations and thoughts that ideas that we would have about how to proceed. We would like to, I'd like to create the committee and invite a fair number of people to be involved. Obviously members of the community, we'd like to reach out to county planning, engineers, financial evaluators. We'd like to talk to the healthcare community, the historical society, landscape architects, the real estate and the business community, Rhinebeck at Home, the tree commission. We'd like to contact an urban planner, and of course, work with the village trustees as necessary. So I've given you I can read part, do you think I should read part of this, or?
Whatever you think is necessary.
Okay. I will read this, the opening paragraph. The purpose of the committee is to create a comprehensive and integrated evaluation of Rhinebeck's streetscapes, resulting in design recommendations, costs, and financing for the following areas: increased walking and bicycling, improved access to the central business district and schools from all points of the village, pedestrian, vehicle, and automobile safety, pedestrian, bicycle, and automobile safety, preserving and enhancing the historic beauty of the village, and improving drainage and stormwater retention. And that's just another, folks in here were early speaking a little bit about climate change. One of the things that we've been experiencing is that we're getting more heavier rains, and the water that we get on the streets winds up a couple places. Sometimes it ends up on the curb, which people don't like. Some of it goes directly into catch basins, and some of those catch basins are diverted into Crystal Lake. And we've experienced problems with erosion. We know that the lake is going to probably flood more frequently. So in looking at the streetscape, we're talking about how to move cars safely through the village, how to move bicycles safely through the village, how to have pedestrians move safely through the village, and create an environment that should be cleaner and more sustainable for all of us. I do have I reached out. I do have a person who I'd like to be the chair for this.
Rick, excuse me,
committee.
if
Sure.
I can just interrupt
Sure.
Trustee Lewitt, because I'm just...
It's a big, I know, it's a big chunk.
I'm a bit confused, because on July 9th at our monthly meeting, I presented the notion of a need for a walk-bike committee, largely tethered to grant activity that's not only we've begun, but is actually now very much in motion. The board that night approved a motion to have both Trustee Rossi and Trustee Lewitt work together on a resolution. And we have exchanged emails, and we sat actually 1 month ago in this room and worked up a resolution that we were planning to bring to the board tonight. You called me the other day. I had not seen this before, as I explained. I certainly like the concept, but is this committee intended to supersede or are we having two committees, or is?
Well, I think we have two issues. One is that for the grant, we have to have a committee, and we need to move on that now.
But grant
So
or not,
that's part of it. But I think that these things would get folded into, because this is one, the idea is here to make one vision, is to move beyond sidewalks, would be to fold in sidewalks, and we've had terrific work done in 2011. We had county planning and citizens came together, and that's what we're, to make a village worth walking. That's what we're attempting to refund to get some up-to-date engineering for that. So I would see that basically the sidewalk portion be folded into this larger
Okay,
comprehensive picture.
I'm not trying to have dueling committees.
No,
Really
but
not.
same goal.
But this is not consistent with what the board discussed and approved at July 9th. It's not consistent with what we have worked on together. It's not even consistent with the conversation we had the other day. That said, I embrace the idea that it should be larger and that it should be more broad. I just need to know, is the resolution that we worked on and we had been discussing, is that something that the board doesn't want to do and instead will pursue this one?
I think that for the purposes of the grant, because you have that committee, we have to go ahead, and we said, that grant committee, so I think for the purposes of the grant, we should continue with that sidewalk committee, but over time, we're gonna have to look at putting all of this together. I don't like we do that in one swoop, and I also realize that I'm bringing this forward, and that we have, recognizing the time pressure for getting the grant.
Well, I had forwarded, Mr. Mayor, a copy of the sidewalk resolution that Rick and I rightfully last month, he said, hey guys, you should have gotten this to us sooner, and we didn't. So I did submit that to yourself, Mr. Mayor, to Pat, and to Rick, saying, hey, here's the resolution that we should be voting on, not only because it makes a lot of sense to have a sidewalk bike path committee, but because we've now have tethered that to not one, but two grants. So I need that resolution approved tonight, or we need to say this is the resolution that is incorporating that agenda.
I view this as the resolution that incorporates that agenda.
Okay.
That's how I view it. Do you agree?
Okay. We can do it that way.
It incorporates it in a fashion that, as what you said, you're trying to improve pedestrian, bike safety, move cars and pedestrians safely throughout the village, which involves a huge impact on our sidewalk infrastructure. So it's very important that we continue to develop, one, to get the grant for our sidewalk. It's very important that we proceed with a comprehensive plan that not only includes our sidewalk, but includes what we've called streetscapes. And I believe even at that last meeting, we talked about streetscapes in general, that we needed to focus on a much broader spectrum. So I view this as a more comprehensive plan that incorporates the activities and how that committee gets folded into this. That all can be resolved and worked out, but we now have a resolution that looks more comprehensive.
And that's the clarity that I'm looking for, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor, is we're not talking about two committees.
Right.
We're not talking about dueling committees, and we're not talking about two resolutions. We're talking about a resolution that's being presented by the deputy mayor the first time here tonight, which, if I understand you, Mr. Mayor, incorporates everything that has come before, which is to say everything since the July 9th meeting.
Agree?
I think what you both are saying makes a great deal of sense. What I find attractive about it is that Rick is basically casting kind of wider net and saying that, planners, engineers, whatever, are going to be on this group, and I think that's the big
As long as that
difference here.
wider net does not lose sight of what,
In fact,
the line that we originally put in the water.
It's intended to actually give, I think, a broader perspective and complement what we're doing, on the work that you're doing, and it's really a multifaceted thing. When you talk streetscapes, now you're expanding, and I think it's the wise, the appropriate way to go.
I guess one of the things that is, I've been looking at this and sort of living it with the tree committee and the highway committee, is that you find all of these pieces interlock together. Where you put a tree depends upon how far you're off an intersection. Where you put a tree depends upon what the distance between the sidewalk and,
no dispute, Mr. Deputy
right,
Mayor.
and so looking at that, and as and again for the drainage issues, I happen to talk to the mayor of the village of Red Hook, and they were doing some major street work, and they did some very nice stuff in order to improve the drainage off their streets, curb stuff. So yeah, I think the idea is that what we've done in the past is that we've kind of looked at each problem piecemeal, but if we can put together some guidelines, and I think the idea is that it'll take years to roll in, I think, some of these changes. If we put together the guidelines, then we'll have something that'll take us forward.
I just don't want to lose sight of the things that we did discuss, and
I know,
as I said,
the sidewalks are near and dear to me.
30 days ago, we sat in this room,
Right.
and this wider, broader, greater casting of a net we could have engaged that into conversation. It's fine that it's being discussed tonight, as long as what I presented to the board on July 9th and what the board supported and what we discussed is rolled into here. I don't want to lose that.
We should not lose that.
We should not or will not?
We will not. I mean, yes. We're going to need all of, the elements that we were talking about.
The resolution that we agreed on.
The one that went with last, or basically the elements are incorporated into here. And, I think the idea is that, and I think this, as I said, sort of this germinated with me for the last, I don't know, couple of weeks, really.
I'm just going to consult with my fellow grant writer.
Sure.
Are we drifting too far?
I would just say, with the way you wrote the resolution, it speaks to setting guidelines, which is wonderful. Guidelines. The grants require a very specific set of action that goes beyond guidelines, as any other grant would, where you need to form advisory task groups, there needs to be public outreach, participation, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just be careful that the sort of the activity-oriented scope of the walk bike is a little bit different than just guidelines.
Okay.
So I think there needs to be some knitting together there to allow all this other activity to move forward.
So when I spoke to the folks up in the village of Red Hook, they received a lot of grant money from a number of sources, some of which we may or may not be eligible here in the village. And that was the approach that they were taking. And then when it came to this street, then we're going to do we'll do the engineering for the street, but this is the parameters that we want to see the engineering done in. And that was really the point. They actually divided their village up into various zones and various streets. So these streets should be this width and have this kind of curve. These streets will be this width and have that kind of curve. And then you can hand that to your engineers and say, okay, it's time for a grant. This is what we want to see. And that's really what we'd be going for. So.
I have a few.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Brent.
I didn't hear that there's, I think you should put like whatever the residency requirement is, if there is any, if it's a village resident, you should put that in. You should put the number of members that you're gonna have on the committee. And I just want everybody to remember the Worth Walking, planning document that was created in 2011 or 12 or whatever. It's just tremendous. It was, has the effect of amending the master plan, and supplementing it just so that doesn't get lost in it.
And
No, I
that's
think-
exactly what we're going after to update, which is that 2011 master plan.
That's correct.
With the grant
That's
that we're
correct,
going forward,
yeah.
that's exactly the target we're going for.
We literally gave, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, we literally gave copies of that 2011 document
Okay.
to, well, to every one of the engineers that, for example, Kingston said you should talk to. So
So-
5 different companies got it.
That's why it's encompassing of everything, to incorporate that, the update to that, right, as we go forward to develop this more of a broader net to cover the.
That 2011 study is great. It gave us priorities. It really gave us a set of goals. Some of the work the reason why we need to update it is some of the work's been accomplished, so we can remove those pieces. We need another survey of what our sidewalks look like, and we need to update the costs, so we know what's going on. But I think that there's no reason to redo the work of that committee. They actually brought us a document, and that is to build upon that and really work with it. I think it's I would like to see that document.
Clara Sauer did a tremendous amount of
Yeah.
work on that, and so did
Yeah.
John Worth. John Worth did too.
I've read it several times.
Terry also.
It's the basis for what we're working upon.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I read it several times, but as I said, as I was visiting, I was taking my daughter around to look at colleges, and we were in Carlisle, PA, and while the tour guide was talking, I happened to notice that they were building retention greenery along some of their streets. So sometimes a new modern design says now you have basically a little strip between the street and the sidewalk or whatever you have, which is a place where water can come in, collect, and then slowly percolate out into the environment. So instead of all the water rushing off the sidewalks and in the streets and winding up in Crystal Lake, it has a chance to settle. It reduces the instant volume, and also it gives you a nice little green area. So I saw that like 2 weeks ago. So it's adding some of those elements to the priorities of getting people to be able to walk, as we said, from all points in the village. We know that we have an issue that our sidewalks don't go to the schools effectively. It's been a sore issue forever. It was brought up.
That was one of the
that
the
was
highest
brought up
priority items.
Yeah, and we know that especially some of the further points of the village are not well connected at this point. This would be with really the idea that, hey, we're going to figure out, let's do this. Let's really try to get these things done.
So are you going to hammer this out together, or?
Well,
I mean,
this resolution,
I haven't seen it.
the resolution.
When do you need it?
It's on the cloud.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yep.
The resolution that Rick and I worked on together and that I emailed to all the parties to put it on the cloud more than 10 days ago was much simpler in design. Basically, whereas the Walk Bike Rhinebeck Committee shall update a sidewalk inventory and cost completed in 2011 by the Village of Rhinebeck and the Poughkeepsie Dutchess County Transportation Council for the purposes of developing plans to repair sidewalks. We don't have that language in what Trustee Lewitt is presenting here tonight. We have, as I said, already submitted the CDBG, the CFA grant to do this work where we reference we're creating a committee, and within less than 2 weeks, we have to submit the CDBG grant, where we again are referencing this committee.
Well, I'm going to request a meeting. You'll find out in about 10 minutes. We're going to need to have a special meeting, so maybe if you guys could get a document together.
I think we should.
That harmonizes all those things.
Well, I think, so let me just in terms of the specific need for the grant, that the idea is that we're going to have a group of people who are basically would be implementing the grant. That's really what they're looking for.
This doesn't get into the grant committee.
No, what you need.
No, the resolution talked about establishing a standalone walk-bike committee. And gentlemen, I've been discussing this since June, July. That is not a grant committee. And we went on to say that here's what the committee would do: outreach to key stakeholders, public, and collect their input, recommend policy, public education, outline public education campaign, recommend policies and funding options. That's not grant work. That was the work
Right.
of specifically this committee that we've been
And
discussing.
that's where,
Okay.
but that's where you apply, that's in the grant language, I assume, when you.
No, the grant language
okay.
says that we're going to have this
Okay,
committee.
Right, that's.
All right,
okay,
so
right.
we're going to go back and forth here quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think I provided a little bit of clarity that said we were going to incorporate the walk bike committee actions as suitable into this overall more comprehensive plan. So I think we've been there, I think we've discussed that. If it needs needs wording, you are in support of a more comprehensive plan. Rick is in support of developing into the
Yes.
structure, so let's not,
I think
let's move on.
Trustee Rhinebeck had it correct, that we
Okay.
just need to harmonize the two.
Okay, I'm good with that, and,
But we need to do it quickly.
yes,
So Rick
I think we
basically,
have a plan. Okay.
okay.
All right, moving on. We're going to then take this resolution, we're going to have another meeting, we'll follow up with it,
Okay.
and draft a plan.
Well, I'm glad to be able to take it to at least have a discussion about it, so thank you.
Okay, thank you for sharing that.
I have two more items that we need to discuss, or at least I'd like to point out. About a year and a half ago, I came to you and I said, there is a program out there that we can replace our streetlights with LED streetlights. The idea being that they're much more energy efficient, they're much longer lasting, they create a darker sky, and they are basically much higher quality unit than what we have now. The issue was we have to purchase our existing streetlight system from Central Hudson. And there became a dispute basically between Central Hudson and the Public Service Commission about what the price of the legacy streetlights would be. Oh, yeah. That has finally been worked out. So, yes, what we've received and what's up on the cloud there really is the price. We finally received a price from Central Hudson for our existing streetlight system. It comes in at about $77,000. Nothing to do yet. I sent this document down to the New York Power Authority. They're the people who are doing the aggregation of the bids, do the work, to do the maintenance contracts and all that stuff, and they're going to come forward with a total cost and plan estimate based upon this number that we can finally give them. So
How many do we have?
we have about 240 streetlights.
$77,000 just to throw them away, or does that count the new?
No, that's just to throw them
That's to
away.
buy,
Wow.
that's just to buy what we
Buy
have.
Yeah.
the junk and just
Yeah.
throw it away?
Yeah, and
So there's,
You know,
so
it's-
what you're saying is on the Public Service Commission, there's a bunch of old utility people that.
yeah,
That's-
yeah. I
really?
mean, that was, well, it actually went down at one point. They'd said it was going to be $100,000. So we got a slightly
Oh my
better deal.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the
That's
kind of
just-
thing where
it's a little weird.
the two things that they get us are they charge us, I think it's about $300 a fixture.
Yeah,
And we pay
$320.
about $100 annual rent, annual maintenance fee for them. We can probably get that maintenance fee for under $20 from a private contractor. That's the number that we're looking at. So that's where some of the big savings for us comes in, is in the ongoing maintenance. And that's why
It's
you look at,
$100 a month per.
no, $100 a year, sorry.
Per
Yeah.
fixture.
Per fixture.
Per fixture. So we spend an enormous amount of money on the maintenance of the current system, which we don't need to spend, and that's actually where the big savings comes in.
So Rick, question, prior to this, there was a consortium that was working together. Is the consortium still together, or we have to act independently?
No, so what's happened is that basically the consortium was subsumed by the NYPA effort. So the New York Power Authority, that got folded in, and the New York Power Authority has now basically taken over as a big aggregator. So they told me potentially one of the things they're going to be doing is aggregating the bid for the service in the area. And they're saying they may even have a regional vendor that would be doing the servicing and such like that for streetlights. So they've taken over the role of the consortium, and they'll lend us money.
So we're not acting alone. And
We're
it's
not, no, we
already
are
been
not,
alone.
we are not acting alone. The town is in this, now that the bids have come back in, the city of Kingston is about to redo, is gonna work on their streetlights, they're gonna go before us. The economics, when the consortium was more active before the pricing situation, Rosendale, New Paltz, Red Hook, both Red Hooks, were all involved just off the top of my head. And it's, NIPA is looking to go from Long Island to Lake Placid.
So the total cost to us would be $77,000 or in addition to something else?
No, that's just the price of buying our legacy.
Right.
Our legacy.
So what else would we need?
We have to buy new streetlights.
Okay.
Yeah, no, so and I haven't gotten to that yet. I mean, we don't have that yet.
No.
So there will be, the last estimate, well, I'm not gonna give it, but it's a couple $100,000 to get the whole thing done.
Yeah. So if we go with that $20 versus $100, we save basically $19,000, in maintenance costs. So over 4 years, we amortize the $77,000, but we have an additional $200,000 to come up with.
Yeah, we will have that's a back of the envelope calculation. So NIPA has the full calculation, that's what we should really
And is
evaluate.
any sort of grant or funding available for that?
For the streetlight replacements, not as far as I know. Okay. The only thing that is available is NIPA has low interest loans that they're willing to fund.
Okay.
But I do not know of any other grant money that will purchase infrastructure like that.
Okay.
And that was discussed at the consortium all that while ago. So unless there's something new, I don't know what that is. So I just the reason why I brought it up, I just want to alert you guys that this is coming up again, and hopefully we'll have a much better outcome. Remember when we got started, the people at the consortium were like, it'll be 8 months, a year. Not even close.
2 years later.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that was a heads up. And do you want to, Mr. Mayor, did you talk to Mike Gussy about this situation?
Yes. All right, so do you want me to lead off on this?
Sure, since you get that.
All right, so the next thing on the agenda is our highway supervisor, Mike Wolf, has asked us to incorporate, as he's planning for his retirement, asked us to incorporate his sick time in with his vacation time. This is a village policy, not a union policy, so we therefore can act on this without getting the union involved, having spoken to the union representative. So what is being asked of us is to take a one-time look at Mr. Wolf's overall sick time, vacation time, lump it into one number, and then he's asked us to approve that number so that today, when you take sick time, if you take more than 2 days, you have to have a doctor's excuse. He's asking for a go-around that situation so he can incorporate the sick time. So to just sum it up, right now in terms of hours, he has 1,320 vacation hours, 393 sick time hours, 6 personal hours, and 0.5 comp hours that has been accumulated.
What was the first number again, Gary? I'm sorry.
1,320.
Thank you.
Right? So what he's asking is to incorporate the 1,320 and the 393 into one number that can be used as technically benefit time, vacation time,
I see.
as whatever he chooses, between now and the time when this employee so chooses to want to retire. And he is on the path of retirement, right? But he's accumulated time. And just for everybody's reference, he had a special agreement that was assigned in 2016 by the previous administration that allowed this employee to accumulate more hours than any of the other employees due to his longevity on the village. He was allowed to accumulate up to 2,080 hours of vacation leave time, which he's only accumulated 1,320. So he had none of the other employees have this accumulation of hours, because I forget what the contract says, but you have to use so many at the end of the year. We went through this last year, and they either have to use it or buy it out, right? What Mr. Wolf would like us to do is, he would like to remain on the village payroll and continue to take vacation, as he seems fit, and schedules with the superintendent of public works that vacation time between now and X, whenever X is. I'd also like to note that on December 14th, every employee gets, on their anniversary, they get automatically the new vacation time awarded to them. So on December 14th, he will get an additional 240 hours.
He will.
Pardon?
He will, not they
He,
will.
I said, sorry, I meant he. He will get 240 hours of vacation
Just for
time.
clarification, Mr. Mayor, at the end, if he decides to retire and this balance of sick and vacation time is still on the books, what happens?
He buys it out.
He buys it out.
There's a maximum of 240 hours that they can buy out upon separation.
But with this permit, with this agreement, I thought he was allowed over and above
He was
that.
allowed to accrue.
Accrue. All right.
Okay.
So,
is buyout is,
The way this agreement was worded, didn't say, it said about his accrual,
okay.
but it didn't say
Yeah.
about separation, but the union contract is 240 hours.
So,
I'll read it specifically. It says, despite the agreed-upon language in the memorandum of agreement signed by the parties on May 19, 2016, regarding the accrual of vacation leave for unit members, Mike Wolf shall be permitted to accrue up to 2,080 hours of vacation leave.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Thank
so
you.
in that interpretation, though, accrual being not subject to buyout, that means that he has to take those days before he retires. Is that correct?
Or buy out.
240 of them, but
Right.
not the entire balance.
Correct.
Okay.
And he's earned the vacation is entitled to him per the agreement.
No,
So
no.
the question we have, though, is not on vacation.
Sick days.
The question is on sick leave.
Yeah.
The question is to incorporate, to change our policy, which is for every 2 days, you need to have a doctor's excuse. He would like to bypass that and incorporate the 393.
Yeah, no, the only reason I'm asking that is that if we combine those two and say that they're all vacation days, then the question becomes the 240 hours plus that accrued total of, let's say, 2,000 hours. 240 would be available for buyout, but during the period of time between now and whenever he retires, he will be using those vacation days and not be on duty.
Correct.
Right,
Okay.
Correct.
right.
Sick time can be used to be applied towards your medical expenses at retirement. So anything that was left over, those hours can be used towards medical expense, which is another option they have for sick time.
How does that get done?
What was the question?
How does that get done?
Their sick time their accumulated sick time can be rolled forward to their,
It can be accrued, it can be applied to their retirement, and then the dollar would be applied to if they wanted to continue their medical. But we've never done that.
No, we don't have a policy for that.
It usually
To apply
does.
to
I think according to our union contract, it gets applied towards their retirement.
Retirement, right.
Any of our retirees that have gone into the medical have paid for it out of their own pocket, the full amount.
except if they would have those hours.
No
No, it has
exception.
No exception, no exception, okay.
No exception.
Okay, so I think the first issue is, do we want to incorporate these hours?
Has there ever been, Mr. Mayor, any precedent that it's been done before?
No, there's no precedent of this.
So my only concern is, if he gets, let's say, a year from now, is he gonna wanna go back and say, well, I want that sick time as sick time to apply it towards his retirement?
In a year, you wouldn't have it, because
Well,
he'd be using it up.
If he, you know what, I'm just saying, if he
It
combined
wouldn't
them.
be there. It would be.
If he uses it, I think you'd have to denote, if we were gonna allow this, you have to denote on your log of hours, what hours you're using for vacation, what hours you're using for sick.
Correct.
Even though we're not allowing it. So it still gets tabulated into the,
So he would move all that accrued sick time over to vacation. I'm just understanding it.
No, he would,
No.
it would still be separate, but he would use, because
He would just not have a mandatory law that in 2 days.
Every
he
2
would-
days,
okay,
exactly.
Correct.
Gotcha,
that's the
gotcha.
only condition.
Okay.
So
Or bypass.
I guess the one other question I would have, so let's say if this were to pass and he waits until December 14th, so he accumulates basically a full year's worth of accrued sick and vacation time, and then on December 15th retires. Would that cause an issue in the sense that he would basically, or I should say, he basically decides to retire a year from then and takes all those vacation days successively or consecutively?
Well,
Is that possible?
they can take vacation consecutively now.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
it would be up to a year, is what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
so that person would not be here.
Basically, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Would that affect, the performance of the department?
Oh, yes, it does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we're basically down a full-time employee.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just raising it as a possibility, as a consideration.
Well, I think these are hours that he's earned to take. I know, so, yeah, so.
All right, so we have other members that want to move on, so we really need to act on this quickly here, rather than debating it, right? So, basically 244 days of accrued time, adding to 244, right? Which is essentially a year worth of time, as you mentioned.
My concern is that we have never done this before. If we do it tonight, then we have to make it available to other employees that would approach us, would we not?
No, we don't. We can do it as a one-time, according to our legal. Yep. I mean, they may bring it up as a precedence, and then we'd have to act and vote on it again, but then we have the precedence. Mike is the only one with this exception.
he's the only one that has the agreement. Everybody else that had over the hours, we had to lose it or we had to buy it out. He was the exception that he was allowed to
So-
keep all those hours.
It is this agreement executed with the previous administration that is giving Mike a
Grandfather
option?
clause.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Just for clarification, so for all other personnel than Mike, they accumulate a certain number of vacation days and a certain number of sick days.
Right.
And we've capped the number of sick days that they can, vacation days that they can carry
Correct.
from year to year to year. How are the sick days handled year to year to year?
Sick days are accrued. You get a half a day, a pay period, so a full day a month. And they are accumulated. In case of,
As you need it.
catastrophic or whatever, you have that. The vacation time has a max, and it depended, it goes back, it's complicated. It goes back to when it was initiated back in 2016, what everybody had at that time. And then that's what their cap is.
Can you roll sick days from one year to
Yes.
another?
Yes.
That's what I'm
Yes,
saying, it's
okay.
accumulated.
But you cannot buy out your sick
Right.
days.
Correct. You
That's
can't
the
buy out
only-
the
That's
sick.
the-
You can buy out
that's a
your
difference.
vacation days, but you
Right.
cannot buy out your sick days.
Personal time, that has to be used in the
Used
calendar
in-
year, or you lose it. And comp time too. So the only thing that can be bought out is
Is
vacation
vacation.
time.
Honestly, I have a concern about doing it. Not only does it set a precedent, but really, I think the accommodation should have been a one-time and should stay at one time, personally.
What's the alternative then?
The alternative is he uses his vacation time as is, and then uses his sick time as is, and that's the way it is.
He could take 2 days, come back a day. Take
Right.
2 days, come back a day. Take 2 days.
He's offering to do it consecutive, because
Right.
we're gonna have to do this out of title every time he leaves, and we're gonna have to put
Right.
someone in title.
Correct.
And
Well, maybe should we ask him?
That's gonna be
Should we ask
torturous.
him for a date certain on a, can we do that? Say, Mike, the plan's gonna run for this long? Is that fair? I don't know if we can do that.
Well, how about we ask for a plan, period?
Yeah.
Okay.
How about we table
Yes.
this tonight.
Yeah.
And come back and ask for a plan going forward and get that, okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion that we do not accept the request today at the meeting, but we ask for a plan from the employee
To
of,
reasonably accommodate, I mean, come
Yeah.
on, we can't.
okay? All right, all in favor?
Second.
Have a second?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. All right. Yeah, I'm going to get, hang on, I'm going to jump to you right now. Is that all right? I understand. I thank you for your patience. You know, but I wasn't going to interrupt the highway, a long list of things that needed to be done. So we will get to that. So, having the request from the audience, yes, sir.
I have a really quick question. Are you doing much with the streetlights? I have a question I can ask the next month about it. But Mike, I'm just curious about how what you were talking about is different from the LEDs that are already replaced. So we can have that discussion
Sure.
next month if that's okay to put it on the agenda.
Sure, we can talk about it when we step out, when we're done.
Yeah, because I mean, they do replace with the LEDs now. So
Correct.
I'm just curious how your plan would be different or distinct from.
Because they're still charging us exorbitant amounts for the long-term maintenance of those. They're charging us basically mercury vapor rates for a bulb that may be have 20 years worth of lifetime. So that's,
So it's just the maintenance.
it's the maintenance, there's electricity savings, but it's the maintenance component. That's where you see major savings.
All right, we'll talk about that for the next one. I know you got a lot.
And we still have the pipe.
Right.
Yeah, I think that was, yeah.
Well, it depends on.
Yeah, all right. So let's move on. I mean, we have a very large number of people that would like to hear about our farmers market and the extension of the contract to the farmers market. So Trustee Rossi, I'm going to turn the floor to you.
Mr. Mayor, thank
the-
you. Thank you,
For
Mr.
the
Mayor.
contract amendments
Yes,
for that.
and I appreciate that we made the quick adjustment to the agenda as well. I trust that all the trustees and the mayor have seen what Village Clerk Kuhn, not Village Clerk Cloud.
That works.
I'm sorry.
I answered
That
that.
Pat uploaded into the cloud. I want to get into it, but Mr. Mayor, the timing for this seems so perfect tonight. I jotted down when you were reading from the Citizens Climate Lobby resolution that citizens in Rhinebeck have the right to clean air, water, and soil, pretty much everything that our farmers need. So I think it's great that we're covering this evening. The modification to the existing contract has 4 items, okay? Item number 1 is to reduce the annual fee from $2,000 to $1, starting in the upcoming contract cycle, which would be 2020, 21, and 22. And Mr. Mayor, as you and the trustees know, that was already discussed and approved and memorialized during our February 19th meeting. And that's in the February 19th minutes. The next change is to actually make the change from a 5-year term to a 3-year term. And that, too, was discussed and memorialized in our February 19th, 2019 minutes. Item number 3 is new to the contract, but it is not completely new. It is to modify the start of the start dates and the end dates of the farmers market. And you might recall that in August of 2018, representatives from the farmers market came before this board, and because, for a variety of reasons, they were not able to provide, the farmers market was not able to provide their services at the town hall, they appealed to this board to extend the contract season, the contracted timeframe, until the last weekend of December. And we memorialized in those minutes of August 2019 an agreement to do that. What we want to do is put that language now into the contract, and as well as start the farmers market a weekend now before Mother's Day, as opposed to the weekend of Mother's Day. And that's item number 3. So we continue to extend to the end of the year, not to Thanksgiving, and we start a weekend earlier in May, okay? And again, those are not new items, but new to the contract. And finally, number 4, which we want to address, if the board will agree, we, the village, we have received concerns expressed about the musicians that provide entertainment, musical entertainment at the farmers market. Mayor Bassett and I had a very in-depth discussion about this, and what we have developed and has been put forth by our legal department is to incorporate parts of our existing code today which talk to musicians, and as well as the existing contract. And I'll just read very quickly that the existing contract currently provides the market, the farmers market, the ability to sell produce, products, wares, and merchandise. We now want to include and the provisioning of musicians, okay? Because that doesn't exist, but as a service it does, and we want to have that now in the contract. So we're not giving the musicians any greater rights or lesser rights than the vendors, but they're now incorporated into the contract. And likewise, as the mayor pointed out, and I reviewed with legal, and we agree, that we already have existing language in 89.4G8 of the Village Code that talks to about musicians during sidewalk sales, and that the music should be, how do we describe it? I didn't jot it down, but that it's considered non-offensive, that it's acceptable, and we reference that specific section of the code now in the contract. So again, we're not giving the musicians at the farmers market any greater rights. We're not giving them any lesser rights. We're just tethering it to language that's already in our code. So those are the 4 items, Mr. Mayor, that we now put before the board. And I'd like to make a motion that the board accept these revisions to the farmers market contract.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
It says pursuant to blankety blank.
No, pursuant to the applicable segments of section 89.4A.
Okay.
And I say applicable segments because some of it is not germane to the farmers market and the musicians specifically.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? So carried. Congratulations. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
That's it.
Good, that was good.
Yeah,
You really went through that
This one's not here for
clearly too.
Water Department.
That's what they say.
Okay, so the,
I can't understand it.
pre-chlorine treatment was turned on, the potassium permanganate was turned off. I think that's because of the zebra mussels. In the summer, the zebra mussels gather around the intake and they use potassium permanganate, so the temperature's down. Repaired the liquid chlorine injection point. The dredging is completed. We have our engineer working on what to do with the sludge that's now in the bags, in the 3 complete. There's like, what, 3,200 cubic yards of silt in those 3 bags. So we're gonna.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's 3,200 cubic yards.
That's a lot.
So we're going to either have to spread it on site if it's okay with the with the regulatory authorities, or cart it away to an approved location. The big thing with the water department is the bid opening on the water line project.
Can I back up that previous one? Because
Yeah.
we are asking the current contractor to bid, if we can get the regulatory approval, on using the leftover money from the contract to spread it, correct?
That's right, yeah.
All right, so we are discussing options right now to be able to do something.
So we wouldn't,
pending
if
the
we
result.
spread it, we wouldn't need to get 3 bids because it would be considered basically a change order to the existing contract, because the contingency would probably cover it, so, yeah. But stay tuned on that, so. Okay, so the water line bids were open on October 1st, and they were pricey, but we had 3 of them. So grants, I'm going to read a lot of this letter from our engineer to Gary and the trustees, the mayor and the trustees. A total of 3 responses were submitted. A tabulation of the bid results is attached, and I'll go over it here. Grant Street Construction was the lowest responsive and responsible bidder with a total base bid and all alternates 1, 2, and 3 price of $4,642,000. So alt 1 is Montgomery Street. Alt 2 base bid is Montgomery Street. Alt 1, 2, and 3 is Montgomery, Chestnut, and Platt. So,
Livingston.
yeah. What did I say?
You said Montgomery, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, Livingston. So Grant Street was 4.642 million, Chacon was 5.588 million, and Central was $6.229,780. So it's expensive because Montgomery Street is so complicated with all the traffic, with all the concrete cap, and all the difficulties of getting that done. So Montgomery Street is going to be the beast of this project.
The $2 million beast.
Yeah, so that was a big portion of this. So we do have the chart of the different bid amounts that you guys have. And it's kind of confusing, but basically what we're pursuing right now is the base bid plus alternates 1, 2, and 3 would be the ideal combination if we can affordably swing this, which, Karen and I have talked about, quite some length. I'll just read about just a little bit describing the project. The base bid item group consists of installing the replacement water distribution system, including a 12-inch water main, hydrants, appurtenances, and customer water services from the water main to the right-of-way boundary along Montgomery. It also includes 3 cash allowances, items establishing unit price for work that may be required, but an exact quantity is unknown. So the alt bids are to do 8-inch water lines on alt bid 1, 2, and 3 on, again, Livingston, Chestnut, and Platt with those hydrants and service connections that go to the right-of-ways. Stantec recommends at this time the village award the base bid and alternates 1, 2, and 3 option if found to be financially feasible. The option would include the full water system replacement on all 4 streets. Stantec Consulting has reviewed the bid submitted by Grant Street Construction, Inc. and reports they have completed all necessary bid docs and therefore recommends award of the referenced municipal project, Water Main Replacement Phase 1 to Grant Street Construction. The contract award amount is subject to the award option to be chosen by the village. So when looking at the money, we had originally got a bond resolution for $3.73 million with the idea that that would be the total cost of the project, including soft costs, and that was sort of the scenario where we did not get a grant. So this is obviously much more expensive. At $4.642 million just for the plumbing and that stuff. But we did get a $2.2 million grant. So the gap is about $2.43 million plus, well, we figured, Karen and I figured,
Probably 2.56.
yeah, 2.56 plus some of the engineering and construction management costs. So we are there, though, as far as what we've approved. We have to go and show that anybody, before we accept the contract, that we have the source of funds. So we have 2.2 something plus this 3.73 million. So we can swing the whole thing. But what we're trying to hash out right now is whether we're going to get in cash crunch. So we want to, before we approve this, we want to talk to the EFC. We have a conference call tomorrow with like 6 or 7 of us, including our bond counsel and our financial consultants and Stantec and Karen and me. And we're going to see, she's concerned that she's going to be able to pay these things, get cash from EFC and do this ongoing thing, and how that's going to be constructed.
Cash flow.
Yeah.
Cash flow is very important.
So
Yeah.
the grant is 2.28 million. Our low-interest funding that we receive from EFC is 1.256. My concern is are they going to give us the 1.256 and we're going to put it in our bank account and use that, or are we going to have restrictions on that as the grant to draw down on it because we have to pay for this incrementally and then apply for reimbursement. So mine is more of a concern of cash flow. So I would like to address that with EFC.
And what the big question we also have is, do we get the 1.2% interest for all of that money that we're not granted? And we think that maybe they're headed in that direction, but we have to
I
get,
got that understanding from the email.
which is
that
tremendous.
they want to
because-
work with us to, for the, to extend that low interest rate for the remaining funds to complete the entire project.
And that saves us a bundle. I mean, this is a pricey project, but if you actually look at what our monthly payment might be, you know, I mean, I calculated on a mortgage calculator for 30 years, and it's not going to be the same as a bond, but it's like, you know, $8,000 something a month. To that end, you know, we did talk about where our water line or our water budget is, and we've been transferring to capital projects $100,000 for the lagoon and 70,000 for the 70-something thousand for the last year 92,000 for the water line project, and we've retired a bond at $50,000 last fiscal year. So we have enough room, like say easily, if we have $100,000 in debt service every year, under our current rate structure, our current, you know, price per gallon rates or per thousand type rate structure, we can actually swing this without changing our water rates.
And that's, I just want to make two comments. One, that's providing, God forbid, nothing that we have to cover comes up in terms of additional expenditures.
Any major change work orders? Or,
Yes.
Right.
Right, so that would dip into that cash flow. And the second one is, if you do the math, you're really left with like less than $700,000 left if there's a contingency plan. So I don't know how much contingency we have built into the 4.6.
Well, we're going to talk to EFC about that 10-15%. If we had structured that already, but now we're structuring on a bigger figure.
Yes.
So
And I don't know
we threw an extra 50-60 grand in for that.
Yeah, so we just got to make sure we
This is all
cover
back
that.
of the envelope right now, but we will have to make a call.
So bottom line
I'm
is,
prepared almost, you know.
we need to have a more discussion with EFC, correct?
Correct.
And then determine what we can pay.
Yeah.
And I think that leads into,
After tomorrow, we should be well educated on this decision. So
we need to call a meeting.
we need to call a meeting. So we
Yeah.
could have the two items on that meeting agenda.
I also, Brent, just wanted to let you know that I was just reading the bond council put a PPU of 40 years on it, not 30, so period of probable usefulness could be 40
That's where I
years.
got that, yeah, because it was the life of the
Right.
pipe kind of thing, and
Right.
that we could, but I don't know if I want to do that.
It's-
But,
But it's nice that that's an option, if we're going for more funding.
yeah.
All right.
Let's run the numbers both ways, and
Okay.
So Pat, what do we have for available dates for a meeting?
Okay, you're talking,
and we really should do it pretty quickly, because
okay, just so I have an idea of when you're talking.
our contractor's waiting on our answer. I don't want to lose it.
Environmental
Right.
specific goals. Yeah, Thursday of this week, the 11th. Gary doesn't, okay. There's a meeting on the 10th. There's
The
planning
public has
board.
spoken.
I'm going to be gone all weekend for the long weekend.
Oh, so
You're right.
weekend, yeah.
The 15th, you could maybe even do it in my office if planning board meets.
Yeah.
Planning board doesn't always meet, but
Well, it's Friday?
No, Gary, next Tuesday.
No, I'm busy the 10th here.
How about the 15th?
Right. The 10th is Thursday.
Yeah.
11th
I'm
is Friday.
the Friday.
I'm not going to be here Friday afternoon.
You're not here
Okay.
Friday?
I'll be on the way to New Hampshire.
Oh,
Okay.
all right.
Then you have
Monday's a holiday, right?
Monday's a holiday, Tuesday,
Yeah.
the 15th.
Okay.
It's good with me.
Tuesday, what time?
6 o'clock?
6?
Yeah.
6 work?
Yeah, 6 is good, yeah.
Possibly. I'm going in for surgery on Wednesday, and I'm going to go in possibly in the city before but is this going to be a long meeting?
5? No.
5 o'clock, would that?
5 o'clock?
Sure.
Would that be okay?
5 is doable.
I'm good with 5.
Yeah, I can do it.
5 o'clock.
I prefer not, but that's okay.
Thank you for
On the
that.
15th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent, good.
Okay.
So,
And what will be the,
good.
is it just the water distribution?
And they're gonna work
And
on
then
that.
we're gonna hammer on.
If they're ready.
Okay.
Let's see if they're ready.
So water distribution and any other business that may arise.
No,
That's
that's
good, that's
Catholic.
good.
That's what I always put.
I know, but that could get into a long meeting.
Okay. Oh, Tuesday.
Thursday, 5 PM.
Tuesday.
If we need that, Tuesday, yeah, Tuesday.
15, Tuesday, 15.
Now, if we need to add more, we'll add more to the schedule. But let's right now leave it for water, and if these guys are ready, then we'll add it to the schedule.
Well, I
Okay.
have to do the legal notice tomorrow,
Oh.
so I have to put what it is.
Perfect, you're right.
So that's why I
Other
usually put
business,
any
All
other.
right, you got me.
Sorry, I just,
We'll show restraint.
Do you need to,
I just will put any other business that may arise.
okay.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
in the pre-bid meeting, the contractors were saying, this is too tight. So the dates got changed,
Yes.
and so
Bless you.
now, what we're thinking about is a commencement date in November. That they will probably work on the side streets right up until it gets really cold, and then do it dry, so they wouldn't want to charge it up. So they would do the pipe, and then not have it all, and then have the water service to the people's homes until the spring.
Well,
And then-
can I interrupt a second? Because actually, we cannot start construction on Route 9 after November. That's the DOT rule. So that drove us into doing the side streets first. That's what came out- That's what came out of the meeting.
That's
yeah.
what David said, so,
Yeah.
okay.
So we're really.
Did you go to
stuck-
the
Not the pre-bid.
Okay.
This was at the bid meeting.
okay,
So we're really stuck with doing the side streets first, followed by then next spring doing Route 9.
right.
We're
Yeah.
flip-flopping the
So-
schedule.
Yeah, so, and then finish around substantial completion, May 22nd, 2020, final June 19th, 2020.
Right.
So, that's it.
Okay,
That's good.
very good.
That's all you had, you didn't want to grasp me?
You have anything else?
Yeah, well, that was really not water, but yeah, I did want to talk about Grassmere. I was kind of alarmed about that constitutional claim that came from the attorney for Grassmere, and I know it's probably a takings claim or whatever, but the idea that we would be when does a regulation become a taking of property without just compensation? And we're not regulating them, we're not exacting anything on them because they're out of district.
Right.
And I don't want to, if they're worried about that request to run the sidewalks to the village boundary, and they think there's no constitutional nexus, there's really going to be a problem also with connecting with the water lines, because we're going to ask them to hook up the customers that are on that route wherever they go. And that's even a bigger constitutional issue if she's correct. And I don't want to argue a legal thing. I would rather just say, just go. I really don't feel like it's a good idea to pursue this under that negotiating climate. And, a long time ago, I read the master plan for the town, and they talk about building affordable housing near the plumbing and the water and the sewer. And we talk about walkability and all these things. And I'm just thinking, I don't really care who builds the sidewalks. I just am concerned that they're not there. So.
I think we're in agreement with that.
Yeah.
We would like to have that.
Right.
And the way we left it with them is that this is, step number 1 is determine feasibility, because we're not even there yet.
Right.
And we have to determine feasibility. Step number 2 was then to start the MOU. And in the MOU, then during that phase, we've also said that we're not going to allow the town to approve it until we have accepted, the conditions for
Right.
letting them connect.
But the problem is now she mentioned the constitutional things, so they could sign the MOU and say, literally, the word extortion comes in these takings cases,
Well,
and thanks to Justice
I
Scalia
think
from years ago.
I think we have a lot of work to do to develop the MOU.
Well,
The language.
they need to come back with a different posture as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think I don't think anybody's in disagreement with that.
Well, Victoria is.
Well,
Yeah. Well, yeah, but if we basically say, then don't connect to us, fine.
That's where I'm at right now. So.
Yeah, I mean.
And I'm not.
I'm a little surprised at that, and it's really sort of contrary to common practice. Okay, I'm sorry, it just happens all the time. There's an arrangement or agreement or recognition, you might say, of the impact on the community. And it may be something small, maybe something big, but, you know, it's a two-way street. And I didn't like that language at all.
Well, you probably have some developments that you worked on where there were these sophisticated, nuanced deals about
It was
bringing
not
in.
even, some of them were, in terms of dollar value, hundreds of millions of dollars, that, it was just a matter of understanding that, you're putting up this billion-dollar building, and by the way, the station beneath it is inadequate, it benefits, the people in the building, and so on and so forth. It was not even an issue.
Right.
Not to say that it's on this order of magnitude, but to me, Grassmere is going to have a very, strong impact on the community. There's going to be a lot of people coming in. It's going to have a positive impact too. And quite frankly,
You do know they're going to have a shuttle.
Well, even the shuttle is a good thing. I agree.
But I've heard you say that your concern was that there were going to be so many more cars coming into the village.
Well, that's my concern.
If you don't use the shuttle.
If you're paying
But-
$700 a night, you may not be wanting to go on the shuttle. You're going to take your car and try and park.
You may not wanting to be leaving the spa.
Yeah.
This is all anecdotal information.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be making judgments on anecdotal information.
So what we first said was, we're going to get the letter, we got to
The
do
letter of
the
intent.
feasibility, the feasibility study. And I believe we should all take under advisement, the direction that we would like to have the village done, which we've presented and talked to them about. And I think those discussions need on go. And if their posture doesn't change, then we have a decision to make. But first, we got to get to the point, can we hook up?
Yes, that's correct, Mr.
Right,
Mayor.
and if we don't, if we
Right.
can't hook up, then it's case over to begin with.
What do you mean can't? Oh, because,
Yeah.
well, water's easy.
I'm
as far
talking
as
about
what-
wastewater.
Yeah.
That's the complicated
Yeah.
one.
I mean, I'm concerned with the odor over there. I'm concerned with where you're going to put these giant tanks,
Yeah.
and they're going to be
Yeah.
releasing.
That's the reason we need, right, the feasibility
I
study. Yeah.
I think we're all in agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Where we need to go.
Brand, to his credit, that when we did meet with the engineers in this room many weeks ago, discussed, wait a minute, if you're going to impact our residents and they're going to require updating their lateral connections into the pipe, you're going to have to pick that up. And I fully support that. And they didn't say yes, no, that Victoria was there,
quiet.
didn't say
They're
anything
quiet.
about constitutional, conflicts. I think that we can get them to do that.
No, I don't know if we can, because it becomes a legal principle. of
That's what I'm
whether you
saying.
can or
I don't.
cannot.
Yeah, I don't.
Well,
want
they
It's not- it's not-
they didn't raise the legal concerns at that meeting, Gary, that Brandt is discussing here tonight.
I know, so let's take this in phases.
We should, yeah.
I think we need to be open-minded in terms of getting the letter of intent, but I agree with you.
Are you guys comfortable with Rich working on this? Because I was concerned that he capitulated to Victoria right in front of us, and this is the third or fourth time he's caved on.
I
have another attorney.
don't have an opinion on that yet.
Okay, because I have an attorney from the law firm that Karen recommended, Ian McDonald, and he gave me a price quote. And
Let's
he's
get through the
very-
letter of intent. Let's get the feasibility study done
All right.
and move forward.
Well, they have the letter of intent, that's.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We have it, but the study's not done.
Yes, but they're two different things. They have the letter of intent, and the feasibility study is underway.
Right.
Bond and Tig, by the way, has approached us. Tig and Bond, I'm sorry, I keep saying it, I say it alphabetically, Tig and Bond, seeking more money into the escrow account, more funds into the escrow. And John's
You
going to
guys agreed that we need to continue with get the feasibility done?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's fine. I wanted that I approach Karen and ask her if she knew any municipal attorneys. Okay, this is all me, so.
That's good, and that's fine.
And,
I would just
Totally
ask that
appropriate.
when we talk about the sidewalk and that something that the board wants, it's something that a majority of the board wants. I'm not there with you gentlemen on this. So just
Okay.
putting it out there.
That's fine.
One last thing on that. I don't think the sidewalks are, I mean, if they just ran a little crushed gravel on their property, maybe a little paved area going to,
Right.
through the cemetery, I don't think it's that much money.
It becomes a negotiable item.
Yeah, it's negotiable. And I think when we I was a little surprised also by their attitude. When we met on site, we were pretty clear that Mr. Manager seemed amenable to doing something, and we're like, yes, let's talk, there's a bunch of alternatives, let's talk about it.
Yeah,
So, I mean, we really, I think we came, or at least my understanding leaving that on-site meeting was that this is something we can discuss, that we would like to see something, but it doesn't need to be the Yellowbrook Road.
The developer didn't reject it.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the
It's their move.
cost, what's the projected, cost of the project?
Oh, their project?
Yeah,
I don't know.
okay.
We don't have the engineering study done.
Well, okay, but
Their
I'm
whole
just saying
project?
it's-
Oh my
I have no
gosh.
idea. Yeah.
It's,
Oh, not, you're talking about their project. I have no idea.
yeah, their project.
Yeah, I have no idea. Okay, moving on, right? Wastewater.
Mr. Mayor, I'll go through this quickly. Top of the page numbers, 3.5 million gallons wastewater treated, gallons of sludge processed, 25,000 gallons, pounds of sludge, 3,623 pounds. I've got a couple of things that I want to discuss, but I know that it's already a long meeting. Maybe I'll hold, I have some bids on roofs for the repair to the office building, which is separate from the facade and roof repairs that we need on the filter building. I got one.
Oh, this is for the
Yeah, for the roof
office?
of the office building, which is also, by the way, where our lab work is done. We did reach out to 3 companies, and one firm was scheduled to come out. We were ready for them. They never showed up. But we did get bids from 2 other firms, LT Carpentry, which is $62.50, and Leary Construction, which is a little bit less, $58.75. And Leary Construction is the firm that both John and John Fenton and Brian Bercamo would be leaning towards. Not only because they're a little bit less money, but they've done work that everyone is familiar with. But what I don't have, Mr. Mayor, is I don't have 3 actual bids because the one company failed to show up when they were scheduled to do.
You did due diligence.
We did, yes. Yeah, we reached out to 3.
I would agree.
So,
If you do make an effort.
oh, yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and I have the name of the firm, and
Yeah, you did good faith effort. So you can take what you got.
So this is new information. We weren't aware of the leak. That's the only thing that's new.
I think I did mention it in an early meeting, but if not, I apologize.
Not the other roof. But that's okay because the roof is leaking. It's
Roof is leaking, right?
All right.
Roof, yeah.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is that we go with,
Karen, we have, the funds are available, for the
Leary,
wastewater
yeah.
account, correct? So,
yes, Mr. Mayor, we do, yeah.
you have a motion? Want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, please, to accept the $5,875 bid from Leary Construction.
Second?
Second. Or did you second?
No? I had, do we have a second?
Second.
Sorry. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, let's get her done.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I know that each of you saw the correspondence from the residents of Wells Manor regarding the ongoing issues of pronounced odors at times. We have, as I think the board members, the board knows, we've implemented some corrective actions. We've put in 2 different types of filters that seem to have some success, but now we're expanding the radius of potential impact areas, which is to say we're meeting with every one of the organizations or entities that do send us sludge. In other words, they have their own pump stations. And we think that that could be maybe those meet points between those individuals, those entities with private lift stations and pumping us to sewers. That might be the issue. So we've already begun outreach to those organizations to see if we can work together. It includes the Gardens, the Woods, Northern Dutchess Hospital, Astor, the Village Greens, and our outreach so far has been very well received, and that's where we're going. And we certainly, by the way, this is an infrequent issue, but it is a pervasive issue. So we're going to continue to work and assist. And Mr. Mayor, the Regina Conray, who authored the letter to myself and to all yourself and the trustees, I've already reached out to her, both by email and voicemail. So that's everything on wastewater at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if you're finished with me, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Okay, committee reports. The Autism Supportive Committee, the only thing I would like to report is the Autism Supportive Committee has been awarded the Hudson Valley Magazine Award. It's the first time a municipality has been awarded that award from Hudson Valley Magazine in recognition of our collaboration in support of autism awareness here in the village of Rhinebeck. And we will be celebrating that event at the Hudson Valley Magazine Gala on Thursday, which is the 10th, and be sharing. No, it's not a gala. We have a table we're going to set up, and we're sharing it with Anderson, and we're going to promote our materials and show what we've done. Right? Hopefully there'll be some food. Hopefully there'll be some food there. Yeah. But it's a night of demonstrating our success. So that's all I have for autism awareness. Tree Committee.
Okay, Tree Committee's got a number of things upcoming. First, I want to say that the annual planting this fall is going to be on November 2nd. The gathering place will actually be my house, 39 Lorraine Drive, at 9 a.m. We are planting trees in that quadrant of the village, so that's why we're meeting at my house. And I believe there are a dozen trees that we have
The
scheduled.
spoils. No, I'm just kidding.
So volunteers are always love to have them. There'll be some flyers around the village with more information. So there are a couple items from the Tree Committee. The first one is that I had a request, or we have a request, from the Tree Committee to expand the number of commissioners from 5 to 7. And this is something that's in our code. And the reason why is that right now the commissioners are finding that they're overworked. Between organizing the plantings twice a year, doing the grants that we've been writing, examining the applications that come in, doing some light maintenance on trees that we've installed, keeping all that, they're finding that they need more hands. So they would like to, we would need a resolution because it's in village law, to expand the committee from 5 to 7. So,
Did you say the village law? So that would require a public hearing.
right, it's the number of commissioners are set in the code.
It's in our code book.
It's in our
So
code.
then we would have to have a
Right.
public hearing.
So, well, the first thing what I want to do is just take a straw poll. If you guys want to do this, then I would ask our attorney to draw up the language, and then we would go ahead and do all that. But are you guys good with
Here's my opinion, more people we get involved, the better.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, many hands make for light work.
okay.
Rick, you have people that are interested.
Yes, there are a couple folks that are out there.
Village residents or?
Yes. Yes. Always. And so I'll ask the village attorney to just draw up the appropriate language to make that happen. The second request from the Tree Commission is to create a planting permit for people who are looking to plant trees in the right-of-way, or what's called the beyond the right-of-way, the brow.
I don't mean to go back.
Sure.
Then if you're going to have the attorney draft it, do you want to make a motion to set it? Or do you want to wait until the next meeting to make the motion to set the public hearing for the next village board meeting?
Yeah, right now, I took it, he just took a straw poll
All right,
to
so
move
then,
forward, so
so
we're
then
not
you're
making,
looking at December, January to have the hearing, just so that you're,
we'll set a date.
okay.
Right, so what you're saying is you want to set, we'd have to set it for, it's got to be, well,
Because if you
to publish
address,
it.
if you address it at the special meeting, then that would be another item on the special meeting. And then if
Wonderful.
you addressed it at the November meeting, then it would have to be a special meeting in November, and you have Thanksgiving and all that. So then you're looking at probably having it at the December meeting. I'm just looking realistically.
Yeah. You're right.
Let's work on it. Let's work on it and figure out a plan.
So just so.
I don't think you need to adopt a plan tonight.
Okay, all right, okay.
But thank you for the input.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just.
I know, no, it's true, there's a long lead
Yeah.
time for all these items.
Just
and
gotta follow
appropriately
procedure.
so. So the reason, so this again would be another change to village code. And I drafted up a kind of a sample permit and paperwork to go with it, which talked about the rationale for this. Basically, the issue is that that area, what is we're talking about the street committee, that area from the road edge into the just beyond right-of-way area is a very difficult area to plant trees. There are sidewalks, there are roads, there are wires, there are utilities, there are considerations in terms of heat stress and all kinds of stuff. And the commission, has been concerned that some people have planted trees that have been appropriate for the area and then they just died. So this is basically the purpose of this, is to ask people to come in, use the resources that the village have. We already have a lovely guide to what trees are appropriate in what places. It's actually on the web. It's part of the, it's accessible from our website. So it's really, and it would be a chance for the tree commissioners also to give people, some, if they wanted, get some input on what's a good tree for this space. So I will, this is my own opinion about it. I hate to be adding more permits, and this is a no-fee permit. I hate to be adding more permits and more paperwork, but at the same time, it seems like if we are going to be looking at the space and trying to do the right thing, and we've seen that people make mistakes, then we do need to do something, or we should do something to see that those mistakes don't happen. So, how do you guys feel about that?
I'll give you my first thought. My first thought is this is a great thing to incorporate into what we're talking about.
I would. But
Or what you talked about earlier with the broader net of the streetscape,
well,
rather than acting on it independently again.
Well, I think the one thing is that, I understand what you're saying, we could incorporate it, and this would probably be part of the, but you can always remove it. Like we get
I'm just
going.
giving you my opinion.
Sure, okay.
Yeah, I
Did you
think
give
we
it?
need to think it through a little bit in terms of process, because I think it's good to help the public make the right decision, which I think is what you're trying to do. I just wonder about, okay, so you mentioned utilities and other things like that. You know, how do we codify or make sure that, you know, the tree is going here, but we're making sure that, you know, wires and plumbing and whatever else aren't there. And to me, that's a key part of the process, right?
Well, you have to call dig safe before you do anything anyways. That's
I'm
required.
sorry?
You have to call dig safe.
Right, okay.
So that's a requirement before you dig a hole
Yeah,
anyways.
okay.
And we'll say these are guidelines, the way that the tree community looks at this is, you have trees of basically certain diameters
Yeah.
and heights that are appropriate for different areas. Right, so that's really, the question is making sure that you choose a tree that's the appropriate height and diameter for
So
the area.
the permit would basically say to someone, this one's okay, but that one's not.
Well, really what it says is, yes, ask us what kind of tree you'd like to plant. And if it's fine, we'll say yes. Or if you don't know what kind of tree to plant, come in, we'll recommend something for you. That's really, that's what it says.
Did you give us this language last month on this?
It was out, but it came in too late, so we didn't move on it.
Oh, so that this is what you're
It's
talking
the
about?
same thing, yeah, it's the same piece of paper.
Is there something out there that's kind of independent that basically could be used as a guide? Independent of, you know, what the tree committee would come up with? I mean, it just makes the process a little bit easier.
I'm not sure what you mean. I mean,
Well,
we
in the
have,
sense that,
well, the issue is making sure that people come in to get the advice. I think sometimes
Sure,
people don't know,
But I
you know,
mean,
they don't
yeah,
know,
yeah.
they don't know what they don't know.
but I mean, is the advice already codified?
Yes, we have a couple of years back, actually, a tree commissioner actually put together a wonderful booklet
Okay.
about the kinds of trees, and I said that's on the web already.
Yeah.
Really, the issue is getting people to look at it.
Yeah, but I mean, is that, I should have said it differently. Is it codified as the required guide.
No, it's just a recommendation.
Okay,
Just
so
a-
that's,
It's
I
just,
think
here's,
that's the
it's
difference.
just, here's a resource for you
Yeah.
if you choose
I
to
mean,
use
I
it.
think you'd be taking it to a higher level and saying, well, no, this is the guide, this is what we're going to basically, so that's part of the process.
Yes, although if somebody comes up with a tree that's not in the guide that is acceptable,
Well, sure,
sure, you
but-
can use that
but,
too.
You know, you also have to adjudicate.
Right.
Is that
Right.
one, you know, who's
Right.
going to do that? Okay.
So.
Well, we've
What do
done
you
some of
guys
the peddler's permit stuff via resolution, right? I mean, do we really need to?
If you, the only thing we did with the resolution is if we changed the form. But if you were adopting a new permit, that has to go
Yeah.
code.
Right.
So that could be incorporated in the same hearing as the, I'm just suggesting.
Right, no, that's what I was thinking, but I don't want
But
to
this-
raise them as separate ideas.
I'm only suggesting that if you're going to go that far as to make the permit, then you really do need to have some sort of guidelines, you know, that are quote-unquote the guidelines, with the exception that you point out that, okay, if you find something, all of that.
Well, I think as
But
it
it's
is.
not just a suggestion.
And that was my point, where it'd be part of the
Yeah.
guidelines that are being developed as part of the, you know, if we adopt a streetscape committee,
Right, exactly.
as set forth the guidelines within
Well,
there.
these would, this is one of the cases of sort of like the sidewalk, like having the wonderful sidewalk study, where this is a known factor that's here. Basically, any streetscape committee would be incorporating existing stuff. We're not going to reinvent the wheel for any of this stuff. It's pretty well invented.
Well, you can reference guidelines too.
Yeah.
Just
There's,
reference, study, a manual, whatever you want.
I will,
And these are for planting trees in the right-of-way?
it's at the right of way or in the brow, in the area just beyond. So
And what is the distance for Brow?
Well, that depends on the street, right? Well, brow is 15 feet. And then our right-of-way is varies from street to street to street to street. So the, in the draft that I put together that would do the language of the permit, it does say that we have a guide which are for trees that are suitable for Rhinebeck's conditions, and it's accessible on the website. And then there's some Q&As.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Would this be a request to have a tree planted at the semi-annual or the planting, or for the
Wouldn't bother with that.
resident to plant their own?
It's just for a resident to plant their own, because when the tree commission is planting, they've already done this process internally.
Well, no, because we had discussed if somebody wanted to get a tree planted, there could be a form to fill out, so I wasn't sure. if that
Right, well,
was-
well, that was slightly different, that was for people to make a request
Right.
to the tree commission. The other thing about it is that the tree commission has a limited number of tree species that they select from, because they plant only bare
Bare
root.
root.
And so residents may be like, no, I'd like a different species,
Okay.
which we can't afford, but they as a
Okay.
resident might be able to do.
I just want to be clear on.
Sure, sure.
Are we saying that someone wants to, I want to plant a tree in my front yard, I have to fill out a permit?
Depends upon how far you are
But
from.
I don't know, so I'm going to have to,
Right, so you're gonna have to take, yes, you're gonna have to take a bit of a look, and if you're close to, if you have a sidewalk, or you're about, or off the street, you need to take a look. We have defined back,
but I think that we'd have to be able to let people know whether they have to do
Right.
this permit or not.
We have in the code the definition of the brow, which I can go.
No,
which I can dig out. That's the answer. I mean, I can add that language
But
into.
you're saying that I'm going to have to submit a permit if I'm in the brow, but I don't
Right.
know if I'm in the brow or not.
Right, I can add
So-
that language about how to
We
determine
should,
that.
it seems to me we should provide a resource so people can
Yes.
tell quickly whether they're in the brow or not,
Yes.
and whether they have to do this permit.
Yes, I think that's right.
Otherwise, it's,
Right, no, I think, no, make it easy to use.
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I think we got to work on the process
Yeah.
Okay.
a little bit more before you come.
Unless somebody decides, I'm not going to follow that, I don't
Right.
care.
That's the enforcement issue, you know, and where do we,
It's my property, how can you tell me what kind of tree to plant?
Well, we have jurisdiction because we have the brow. I think
Right, yeah.
it's beyond the right of way.
Yeah, which beyond what?
Not in the street.
It's almost beyond the pale.
Basically, here's I think the natural history of it was that it's illegal for municipalities to do anything for any property owner's private gain. However, the New York State Thruway Authority realized that they needed to plant trees on people's property to stabilize soil around the thruway. So they created this loophole, which says basically municipalities can plant trees with public benefit on private property as long as the tree has substantial benefits to the community.
Which we do today.
Which we do, which is the process that we use
already do
today.
that.
Many of the trees that the tree commission plants are planted in that way.
I read this actually, getting ready for the tree grants, but
Right.
all that.
Right.
But I don't know if you're talking about the space between the sidewalk and the street, or somewhere
No.
on my private property
So-
behind the
Yeah,
sidewalk.
On an
behind
old,
the sidewalk.
on a user road, the old roads, then if there's a sidewalk, then that's part of the user road. So that edge that's close to your house would probably be the end of the right of way. There's no surveys for those older homes or anything, but
Yeah, it's, and
I talked to Mark Graminsky about that.
And we don't have a standard. I think one of the things is that and you know better, I've learned a bit about this, that the right-of-ways off the various roads in the town are village all over the place.
The what?
The right-of-ways off the various village roads vary tremendously.
South Street may be different than Livingston Street.
Well, that's, yeah, the platted ones, like Platt is literally platted, so, and then mine is, the right-of-way goes way into my lawn, but then right out here, you can determine it by these archaic kind of principles of what we use, the municipalities use.
Right.
For instance, in the main business segment, it's almost like 50 feet is the right of way.
Wow.
You have a grand distance.
You're probably talking about the state road.
Yes.
Yeah,
state
then
road.
that creates another wrinkle, yeah.
In the typical definition of standard road is 24 feet wide, but they bring you up to almost 50 feet because they give you 12 feet of the right of way on each of the 24 width of the road plus 12 on each side. That's considered your right of way.
You mean my living room?
Yes.
Right.
And then beyond the right of way,
Right.
you know, we're in the back of your house.
Well, we don't want, no, we want to do that.
So
we don't want to do that. And I can't, if I can get a cleaner it out.
let's go through, let's go define the process and get some more education
Okay.
on what needs to be done. Agreed?
Agreed, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Agreed.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't object, just want to learn more.
Gotcha, no, that's fine. I'm going to bring it forward so we can talk about it and move from there. And we have no requests for permits to move on. That's that.
Okay. Community Development Block Grant.
Real quick, Mr. Mayor, I have uploaded, or had Pat kindly uploaded to the cloud, how we are approaching the timeline requirement, but more importantly, the financial requirement. So it's our intention to pursue the grant based on the higher cost, which may or may not be the case, right? But we'll go with the higher 308. 308. And we have learned that we have time to submit for a private foundation grant with Frost. That's due before the end of October. This one's due October 18. So that's the intent, Mr. Mayor and trustees, that we will do two grants, one for $150,000 CDBG, one for $100,000 Frost Foundation, and each done before the end of this month. And then we would put up the balance of $58,000. Should all this come to fruition, and should that be the full cost that's borne by this project. I only want to say, and if Donna wants to jump in, after we reviewed this, this is really a good project. The way that this connects, and I didn't see that visually until Donna and I got together and started to knock out, and Donna had done these great aerials that have to be included and uploaded as part of the CDBG application. So unless, there's any concerns or questions, that's the plan that we're moving forward with, those costs, that timeline. And again, I just would reiterate, this is really a worthwhile project. May not be worthwhile at 308, but, you know,
That's why I brought it up.
yeah, yeah. No, it really is good. The way it does connect,
It hits on at least 4 of their interest areas,
Yep.
including the historic preservation.
Yep.
The woods, the garden, the woods, the village green, the
Wells Manor.
Wells Manor are all in that income eligible area, and it also speaks to the walk, what do you call it, the PDC, the 2011
Yeah.
study, which said the priority should be those streets which are within 1 or 2 blocks of the 4 corners.
Mhm.
So, we've fired on every piston.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
yeah.
And thank you.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you convince
Yeah.
it's very convincing,
Yeah.
so the question is,
And when you're touching every one of the bases that they're looking for, Gary, you know, it's you're like, wow.
We just have to get the money.
But we have a good story, we really do.
We have to get the
We
money.
do, yeah, yeah. So,
It's
anyway.
contingent on the money.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, both grants, yeah.
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 Okay,
Thank you.
is that it?
That's it, sir, yes.
Climate Smart Committee, I'll just briefly read it. We have a Climate Smart Task Force. In summary, the Climate Force Task Force has one major mission, and that is by January to get us through the NYSERDA process and hopefully of getting bronze certification for a climate smart community. That's our goal, and we're working to achieve it. They're doing so by coordinating, a lot of events in terms of putting these tools together, but I'm not going to read all this, but the task force includes Rachel Cavell, Jennifer Breslin, Scout Pronto Breslin, who you saw tonight, who is on it, Benedicta, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Carasile, Von Carasis, Vanessa Bertozzi, and Susan Ragusa, as well as myself as the village representative, which we're required to have on this Climate Smart Task Force to be able to be an official task force. So we're meeting regularly. We have another meeting coming up the end of this month to work towards that goal. It's a very aggressive goal, but hopefully we can document what we have and get the number of points.
So is the name not a committee, it's a task force?
It's a task force, it's not a committee.
Okay. I just want to make sure I got it right. Okay.
It's a work group, if you want to call it that.
Oh, what?
I call it a task force, it's a work group, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
But it's not a committee.
Okay.
It's head by our Climate Smart Community Coordinator person, is the
Okay.
chair, Matt Stinchcomb. Okay?
Yep, thank you.
All right, what's next on the agenda is the Rhinebeck Fire Department Parade of Lights. I don't have that printed up, but I can pretty much read it, go verbatim on this. If you remember back, the holiday parade was usually conducted by the Rhinebeck Chamber. It's now been divided up into 3 segments, where segment 1 is the Rotary is taking care of the bank, Rhinebeck Savings Bank, and everything that happens with the tree lighting. Section 2 is the actual physical lighting of the trees, putting the lights up in the trees. That's being done by Dave's Tree Service. Thank you to Dave's Tree Service, again, for volunteering that. The chamber is providing the lights to do that. Now we need somebody to do the physical parade, right, which was conducted before. The Rhinebeck Fire Department has volunteered their services and coordination to do the parade of lights. It'll be December 1st. It will start at the opposite end of town, kind of like similar to Cinder Claus, come down the hill, cross Route 9, and end here at the municipal parking lot prior to dropping Santa off at the tree at the municipal savings bank. It'll be made up of approximately more fire trucks, because fire trucks, are usually invited to these kind of events, and we're hoping to get maybe a dozen fire trucks from the participating communities as they go around to Pine Plains and all the others. December 1st is a good date because it coincides with the consecutive dates for the other fire departments who have already decorated their trucks, and I have to undecorate them to put them back in service, and then redirect them to come back, redecorate them to come back. So all cohesively kind of flows, and we get a parade of lights and a holiday parade at the end of the result. So,
Very good.
any questions? That really summarizes what we need to do.
How does How does it work with crossing 9 then?
So first step is to get the event application approved. Second step is to get the DOT application approved by December 1st. In that DOT application, we quantify the police, the barriers, all that kind of stuff in that, because we need to move them. We as a village who are sponsoring this via the fire department need to next do the parade of lights. Need to do the DOT application.
DOT, yeah.
And get that in. So, similar, we have to get that approval.
Okay.
Any questions?
No, great.
All in favor of approving the Rhinebeck Fire Department's parade of lights on December 1st?
Did you make the motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, very good. And we did the farmer's market, Don?
There's another.
Turkey
Yeah.
trot. Karen?
Oh,
Turkey trot?
I don't have that on my agenda, sorry. This one just came in.
No,
Oh,
turkey
wow.
trot's been on the agenda.
Oh, no, I missed it, sorry. So Rhinecliff Forest Inc. Is the annual turkey trot 5K race. How do I scroll down here?
Two-thirds.
It's not scrolling for me, sorry.
November 28th.
That one I don't have memorized.
Gotcha.
You lost it.
No.
I have the paper copy.
Oh, there you go, there you go.
Turkey trot. We have paper. So it's the organization of Ferncliff Forest Inc. Hours of peak attendance 8:30 to 10 a.m. Estimated number of management vehicles is 2. So this requires police approval, do we have? And fire
Police
department
talk.
approval, which we have, right? So given that everybody's approved, the next thing, if we approve, follows the same course of getting a DOT approval, right?
It's not on state road.
It's not on state, it's all on Montgomery Street? Oh, very good. Then we don't need that. Excellent. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the annual Ferncliff Forest 5K race
Second.
on 11/28, you're fast,
Oops.
11/28/19. I have a second.
Second. Mr.
All in
Mayor.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So carried, thank you.
The new one that came in was this Bar Wars,
Was what?
the Bar Wars,
Oh.
the Rhine.
That one I did read today, I can summarize that one. So the Rhinebeck Chamber holds an annual event called Bartender Wars. It's held inside the Beekman Arms, 50 to 75 people in general attendance. It's basically establishments throughout the village and that belong to the chamber come in and compete for a prize for the best drink. The difference is this year that they've held this is they want to put banners on the outside of the building. There's 2 banners, one advertising the event and the second one a drive safe banner, which will be on the building of the Beekman Arms. The Beekman Arms has approved the banners to be used, but banners are part of our approval in terms of the village process, so we need to approve them as well.
And I just said that banner is part of, they want to have basically a designated driver service.
Right.
Yes,
So people
good
could,
point.
That's a good thing.
that's what it's
Yeah.
for.
Yes.
They talked to John Fenton. John Fenton referred them back to me, and that's why.
That's good.
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Rhinebeck Chamber's bartender wars
Second that.
on October 24th. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Got anything else? Well, on my paper,
Minutes?
my second paper went back with her paper. Got picked up into the pile. I think we have the minutes.
Minutes look great.
Ninth.
Farmers, there you go.
16 pages this month. Holy crap.
And we have minutes approval for September 10th, 2019 meeting.
I make a motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Pat, anything on correspondence?
No, you guys had, put it all out, but there wasn't very much. Okay. There was nothing else.
Okay, it's all on file and posted on our website, correct?
Oh, wait, I do have it. One, we had a gentleman from the Meals on Wheels, he wants to come to our October, he wanted to come to October, but we didn't have, it was too short. So either he wanted to come to a special meeting if we have it, because he will not be available at the New Orleans, he'll be in New Orleans the week of our November meeting, so he would like to make a presentation to the board. The only thing, it won't be on Panda. We would have to wait until December then. But Meals on Wheels has extended into the Rhinebeck Village only area, so that's why he really wanted to get the word out.
I thought we approved this last year, the extension.
We don't have to approve it.
We don't approve it, but
He wants to come to make a presentation so that the word gets out to our residents.
Well, he doesn't want to come to our special meeting then, because that's
No,
going to.
but he's not available at the November meeting, so then he's gonna have to wait
Have
until
to wait till
December.
December, yeah.
Pete Nimer, that was for Pete Sergeant Dunn. A letter from Regina Conroy.
But Pat, that's what I covered.
And that was
Yeah,
yours?
the Wells Manor, yeah.
I got a letter from Walter, and I'm sorry, Walt, I can never get your name right. He was a pharmacist at CVS, and he's retired from CVS, and he was thanking the Rhinebeck for, just thanking Rhinebeck. And we got a notice of public hearing from the town of Rhinebeck for 5 Long Dock Road. That's all our correspondence.
Okay. All right. Having nothing else, make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:55.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Done. Thank you.
Can I sign the vouchers too?
Yes, yeah.